Hello and welcome to Elimination Round 1 of the Naughty Racing League. My name is
What's up?
Toon,
What's up?
and joining me today in the commentary booth is none other than SlowMoe. How are you doing today, sir?
A little slow, but here I am. Glad to be here. I'm really excited to see the racing we're going to go through today. We got some really strong competitors that have been putting in a lot of practice and effort, and today is going to be some really good racing. So, looking forward to it.
All right, all right. Now, some of you may have watched the Gran Turismo manufacturer showdown today and saw that they too were on Suzuka. We're going to be doing things a little differently today because instead of having the opportunity for rain, it's going to be raining all the way through this. And it's going to be 20 laps instead of 35, and we're in the illustrious RedBull JR X2014.
You know, it was really incredible watching the folks on the on the World Series today running this track in the rain. They didn't see rain the whole time, which these folks we're going to watch are going to. And I tell you what, I ran some practice laps myself. This is absolutely going to be a challenge for these drivers, no questions asked.
Oh, absolutely. Luckily, they'll have 15 minutes for qualifying, but as opposed to the World Series, we're on 8 times tire and 6 times fuel for both qualifying and the race. And we also have to have our competitors run softs, mediums, and hards. No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to use 3 tire compounds.
You know, I really love the complexity of using all 3 tire compounds. It gives these drivers just a variety of different strategies they could approach this race with. So I think you're going to see some really interesting strategies and a lot of diverse strategies at that.
Oh, yeah. Now, since last week was not an elimination round, here is the driver lineup for everybody that will be participating, but I would like to throw out that Root and Jay Smith will not make it this week, and due to personal reasons that we are not at liberty to discuss, but we wish them all the best, and hopefully we will get to see them again very soon.
I hope everything's okay. And, when you guys are in the chat here, tell us who your favorite drivers are. Who do you have picked to, first of all, win the heat? Who do you have picked to, have the fastest time of the night? Let us know in chat who you're thinking of, who your favorites are. We've got some folks that are on the bubble, too. So, tell us who you think is going to make that cut and who might not be able to make it to next week.
Now, looking at this screen, here is our lineups for Split 1, starting from Sophia. We have Sophia, Lakoboro 809, Chief Apollo 11, GSR Shaggy 88, Stubbs McStubbin, Jay Smith, MK Mass Koala, PHG Papa's House of Games, Arrow, Root, who also will not be here today, but that's perfectly okay. Nikki Hunt and CBD Driver rounding out Split 1, which will have qualifying starting in just a few minutes. And after race 1, we'll have our second race, which in Split 2 will have Hako 1337, GLK Sneaky, Speed Racer, Salamander MN, Corridor 71, Art Vandalay, very fun name to say, Big Joe 603, Jimmy K9, Fernando Button, ROCRoomes, and AngryFredbird.
And, now I think is a really good time to mention, if you see those icons next to those drivers' names, that will tell you how you can watch them. So those of you guys who are familiar with that YouTube icon, PHG Papa, Root, obviously he won't be streaming today, Salamander Joe, K9, and Fernando Buttons. And then you've got your Twitch streamers. So Sophia, Nikki Hunt, CBD Driver, Hawko 1337, and Sneaky.
Now let's go and take a look at the standings, and thanks to an impressive showing last week in qualifying, Sophia is at the top of the leaderboards, followed by Hako in P2 and Lakoboro in P3. Rounding out our top 5 in the point standings is GLK Sneaky and Chief Apollo 11. In 6th through 10th, we have Speed Racer, GSR Shaggy 88, Salamander MN, Stubbs McStubbin, and Jay Smith, who again will not be here, wishing you all the best in your endeavors in your personal life. Then we have for 11th through 15th, MK, also known as Mass Koala, PHG, Papa's House of Games, Corridor 71, Arrow, and Root, who will not be here, again wishing you all the best. Hope everything is okay. And then coming into the 0 points, we have Art Vandalay, Big Joe 603, Jimmy K9, Nikki Hunt. Now in orange, we have the bubble, which means at most risk of elimination, is Fernando Button, CBD driver, ROCRoomes, and AngryFredbird. Let's see if they can bounce back after last week and hang on to this league just a little bit longer.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how those guys do and some of the strategies that they're going to use to try and hang in and get through this week. You know, there is tough competition in both splits. I think you are absolutely going to see some awesome racing throughout today. You know, my expectation is to see courteous drivers, but very, very competitive. You know, these guys know how to do it the right way, how to get out of people's way when it's time to let somebody by, and also how to push and hold that position. So I think you're really going to see some good competitive clean racing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's a level of determination in here that I don't want to say the drivers in the broadcast of the World Series didn't have, but I'd say it's right there up on par with it. Now, let's take a look, my apologies, at qualifying, which is now currently underway. They had 15 minutes, and really, this could be anybody's game. It all depends on strategy and how much they were able to get some practice in, because running softs, mediums, and hards all in the wet, that's not something you can just wake up day up and say, oh, I've got this.
No, not at all. And, you know, it looks like we're watching Sophie's camera here. You know, I got an opportunity to see a few of the different drivers running by joining some of these lobbies and you know, kind of riding alongside with them. You know, I ran some laps myself, and I got to tell you, these guys are really fast. Rain with the multiple tire compounds. You know, some of these guys are really scary good. We're going to see some low times. We're going to see some really competitive driving, and you know, I'm really excited to see how this goes here and to see the competition these guys are going to put forward for us.
As am I. As we can see, Sophia is just flying through diagonals 1 and 2, coming up into the hairpin. And I see Sophia was also on that curb. Now, that curbing is going to be very dangerous because of the rain. It already has a little grip as is, but in the rain, it's like you're just on ice.
Yeah, the curbs get really slick, especially when the rain's pouring. And, you know, the more heavy it gets, ice is a perfect way to explain it. I mean, sometimes I'm just shocked by how slippery those curbs get when you actually get, you know, you don't even always touch them. Sometimes you just cough or breathe on them, and it's you know, your rear end spinning out and around you. You know, just kind of looking through the field and kind of what they're doing here for qualifying. There is a little bit of a pack of these guys. I was kind of surprised to see that. I expected to see them a little bit more spaced out. Maybe they're still working on that on the outlap, but you know, let's see how this qualifying goes. You know, Toon, let me ask you, who is your pick for pole on this race?
That's a really good question. For split one, unfortunately, I got to give it to Sophia. She was a monster last week in qualifying on Bathurst, and if she brings that performance, she's going to be leaving everybody in the dust.
Yeah, it is hard to argue with that. You know, obviously we all know that Shaggy Doo is another one of the top contenders, just based on some of the time trials and some of those times you see on his friends list that he can put up at these tracks. You know, I think those are probably the two that I would have trouble deciding between. You know, honestly, and we've talked about this all week. This split's loaded. Both splits are really loaded, but you know, this is a really competitive split, and I really think it could be anybody's game. You know, especially considering some of the elements like racing in the rain. You know, just the track itself. This is obviously a fan favorite. You know, we saw it in the Manufacturers Cup today, and it's a popular track that a lot of people know how to drive. You know, there's not always one straight line that you're going to take, and hardly any straight lines in this track. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, for those of you that are unaware, a fun fact about Suzuka is it's actually Honda's test track. So they use this to test cars such as the NSX, the
Stubbs into the wall. I'm sorry. Yeah, Stubbs going into the hairpin, took a shot into the wall. Looks like he's trying to rejoin safely. There's a little traffic there.
Ooh. Let's hope that Stubbs is able to bounce back from that. Now let's go over to Lakoboro, who is going to be Where is he? He's about to be approaching 130R. Let's see if he can do this flat or if he's going to lift. Holding it flat. This man has no fear whatsoever. Going into the Casio triangle. Doing a little down and up action with the gear shifts. Very good. Getting some extra rotation in there. And coming across the line with a 2:04.566 as the benchmark lap. Let's see how everybody else does.
Yeah, he put a purple up there. You know, he's been pushing, and obviously he put a really good hot lap in there. That was clean. He had a little bit of space to get around the track, and you know, I think you know as well as I do, Toon. Sometimes these qualifying laps can be positioned on the track and kind of who's driving around you. And looks like a CBD driver actually put up a 2:03, if I'm not mistaken. There.
Oh wow! Already going for fastest laps left and right. Oh, this grid order could be less than what we expect. For all we know, we could have CBD driver and others sitting at the front of the pack and have some other fan favorites like Sophia or Shaggy Doo not do too well in qualifying. That's the best thing about this 15 minutes of qualifying. It is anybody's game, so you can really end up anywhere. So we could have a completely different starting grid that we may have imagined looking at the driver standings from last week.
Sophia is purple through 2 sections, just went through the hairpin, and she is hustling. A couple folks got out of her way. She is just absolutely tearing this track up all of a sudden. Let's see what her qualifying lap ends up being.
Yeah, I'm glad people are moving out of each other's way for those that are having a pretty hot lap. That's a very good showcase of sportsmanship. Now, coming through Spoon, held it nicely. Actually, wow, a lot of them are going through Spoon quite nicely.
Right. Yeah, you can tell these guys have definitely put in their practice, not only on the track, but also with the appropriate elements. You know, setting the rein the way it's supposed to be set. Oh, purple through the 3rd section. Ooh. She's still pushing. And is that Lakoboro in front of her? She's not really closing on him, so to speak. Oh, that's Chief. Okay. He's apparently running a good lap as well. Yeah, she hasn't really made up a ton of ground until you got to the chicane there.
Let's
see what she's going to bring in.
Ooh, that looked like she was about to hit the wall. 2:03.035. Like I said, folks, Sophia's a monster. They're going to have to give it their all.
Yeah, that was a great lap.
Let's now take a look at Nikki Hunt coming through the Casio Triangle themselves. Got to round off this lap with a 2:09.941. Definitely not a flying lap, but still a very respectable time. And who knows, between qualifying and the race, this race pace could change drastically.
Yeah, I think that's a relevant factor to understand, is that qualifying and race pace is always different. Some people drive better in traffic than they do in a qualifying lap. So, you know, you just never know sometimes with based on somebody's qualifying lap how they're going to do in race. So, you know, that's why we run the races, right?
Oh yeah, I like to consider doing qualifying and you know, like the warm up, if you ever make it in there, is just trying to shake the rust off for the race proper. Now, coming into Degna 1, let's see how Nikki does. Ooh, that's actually a really good line, all things considered. Coming into Degna 2, staying off that curb to eliminate the risk of spinning out. Good thinking.
Really clear. Yeah, staying off the curbs like we talked about earlier. We know how slick those get. Let's see how she goes through the hairpin here. A little touch on the curbs, but staying off them for the most part. Gentle on the gas.
Rolling. Yes, Nikki did a good play by rolling on that throttle, because if he had ran just foot to the floor right out of that, he'd be doing pirouettes. Now coming up into Spoon, let's see how he manages. Staying in 4th, Bolt. Down to 3rd. There we go. That's better.
Yeah.
And neatly done. Now, I hope that these drivers are also aware that they may have to consider their tire wear and fuel consumption for this race as well. You may be able to gain a bunch of pace ahead of your peers by going full throttle, but there is a cost to it by running out of fuel before everybody else. Now let's see Nikki going into the Casio triangle.
Yeah, I think it's
Beautifully
also
done.
relevant to mention, we actually have a variety of different players playing on different inputs here, right? So, for example, Shaggy, he's on a controller. Sophie is on a motion controller. Sneaky, who we'll see in the second split, is also going to be on a motion controller, which I got to tell you, that's something cool. I can't say that I've ever seen them before. I had to look it up. I knew what they were, but I didn't know how to use them. And it's my understanding you actually have to get like a special tool from PlayStation to be able to use that with your 5. So anyway, couple folks on motion, couple people on the pad, and other people's on the sims. We got a variety of driver inputs going through here.
I always thought when they said motion, they were just using the motion turning on their DualSense or DualShocks, where you just hold your controller and turn it like a wheel.
Yeah, me too. It looks like Shaggy Dude went through the pits a little bit, so to your point about the tires and the the fuel, it looks like he's going to get topped off there, but he'll have a fresh set of tires to go through his qualifying.
Now what I'm thinking here is, would pitting during qualifying be the right move, because the track is also going to be wet, so your tires won't get as warm as quick. So going through the circuit on cold tires and tires that aren't properly broken in, that's a bit of a gamble in my opinion. But
it is. It's a really good point.
They go through this. Let's see MK go through Spoon. Oh, Nicky Hunt run a bit wide. MK as well. Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle. All right. Oh,
I do love that livery. MK is fun, yeah.
Ooh, you got to be very delicate. Looks like MK's taking a safe rejoin onto the track. Fair play to you. I hope these drivers are aware of every possible worst case scenario that could happen if they don't do this just right.
Sophie is in the pits. Looks like she got a fresh set of tires there.
Alrighty, Stubbs McStubben on to lap number 6, hot lap number 5. Let's see, coming through into the S's. Beautifully held so far. Just dab of the brakes, back onto the throttle. Okay, kind of finessing the car through the S's. I like it.
Yeah, and watch for that trail brake. Stubbs is actually really good at it. You can see that brake, it'll increase, then drop a little bit as he gets back onto the gas and goes through the turns there. So, always definitely a good tactic to help you kind of build a little speed, maintain a little more through the turn and go. Here you go, great example.
Ooh, clipping the curb in Degna 1, dropping down to the second gear for Degna 2. Really, the braking does help separate the top split drivers from the drivers that might be in lower splits, because it's really that finessing of the braking and the throttle helping show car control and really knocking out chunks of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're going this fast, every little second of input makes a big difference. So, those little bitty pieces can add up to make one big puzzle. Looks like, unfortunately, Sophie got a pit penalty coming out, I think. I don't know if she got it going in or coming out, but she's got a 3-second penalty there. So this will probably be a wash lap for her as she gets ready for her next one. And again, probably burn off some of that fuel and try and get those tires warmed up in this lap.
Oh, yeah. Now, I don't see, with the time Sophia said, I don't think she's going to be worrying about, the penalty all too much. I think right now it's just practicing and just trying to get comfortable with some racing lines. Let's see what Stubbs sets. Ooh, a 204 420. Good.
That's a good lap. That's a good lap.
A very good lap.
Toon, real quick, do you know whose livery that is? Who made that livery? Is that Stubbs?
I'm not quite sure. I believe Salamander made it.
Okay, I was going to say that looks like one of those classic Salamander liveries. There are some very talented folks out there that make liveries, and Salamander is definitely one of the top 3 in my book. Make no mistake about it.
Oh, absolutely. We've got just amazing talents in both racing, liveries, and streaming, all in the McNaughty League. And I could not be prouder of our drivers and of those in production for everything they do. They give everything they have into this league and into their passion, which is GT7. And speaking of the McNaughty League, I would like to make special mention that the McNaughty League is a entirely community-funded league. So those that make super chats, donations, super stickers, anything of the sort, all of that money gets funneled right back into the McNaughty League and goes into the prize pool for our competitors. So if you're feeling generous and like what you see, why not throw a couple bucks this way? I know the drivers will greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, very well said.
Now let's see how Chief Apollo does going into 130R. Also
the only thing I
want
to yeah. The only thing I wanted to add to that is we want to throw a big shout out to McNaughty himself for doing all the background work and help getting this league together. This really is something special. We're all very honored to be a part of the inaugural season. And look at Chief Apollo there, 205.562. He's moving well. I think he's doing pretty well around the course. And as you kind of look through and see some of the folks' times, we're going to have an exciting 20 laps coming up here, Tim.
Oh, absolutely. As we're getting into the tail end of qualifying, it looks like our standings at this current juncture, there's still one lap of racing where anything can happen, will be Sophia starting on pole with Chief Apollo in second, Shaggy Doo in third, CBD Driver in fourth, and rounding out the top five will be Lakoboro. So will they hold on to these spots, or might there be an upset by the end of this final lap for qualifying?
Yeah, honestly, PhD Papa's not all that far off the lead, to be honest, either. He, maybe a couple smooth turns away from it. He's got a 205.397, and I'll be honest, I don't know that we watched too much of his qualifying, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to have a chance to race next to these guys and be competitive through the race here. So we're going to have to see what's going on here.
Yeah. And I would also like to throw out that if you are subscribed to one of our competitors that is currently broadcasting, please be sure to say hi in their chat, mute their stream, and keep us playing in a separate tab or window. That way you don't miss any bits of the racing action.
Yeah, and
I'm getting word from production that we've already got our first super chat of the day for $5 from William Lines. Let's go, Sophia.
A big shout out, William. Nice job, buddy.
And it looks like Sophia's already got a bit of a fan club going on. Production's also informing me that before the broadcast started, we actually got a $25 super chat as well. Thank you both so much for your super chats. And on behalf of the Naughty Racing League, we could not do this without your support.
Wow, Kayvon, yeah, good looking out. Thank you. That's an awesome donation. And again, we mentioned it before, but if you guys make a donation while the league is on and while it's running, that goes back into the league. So that is for the drivers, the prize pool. Naughty has been so awesome to help us out and be able to host this cool league for everybody to participate in and get such a great group of classy drivers together that are I expect to show a lot of respect for each other. Obviously we have stewards, but the chances are that we need our stewards is probably pretty light with this group. So you're going to see some fun racing here as the qualifying wraps up. And Toon, it looks like I'm really not a surprise there. It looks like Sophie's going to be starting in the pole.
Oh yeah, definitely don't expect anything less. She is probably in a league of her own at this rate. I'm hoping that other drivers will follow her example and kind of make her work for it a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine. Would you use the word alien yet?
Not quite. We're in monster territory, but if that lead was at least a second or so further, then yeah, definitely into out of this world alien territory when it comes to driving skill. Now, we should also throw out that this race is going to be a grid start, so with full start checks. So everybody's got to be careful to not jump the line. And, well, let's see these results, shall we?
Yeah,
So
look at that.
number one
No
is nobody's
surprise.
surprise. That's going to be Sophia in pole, followed by Chief Apollo 11 in P2. Only, what is that, about a quarter of a second behind?
Yeah, not that far.
And then following dangerously close behind Chief Apollo is going to be GSR Shaggy Doo. Also dangerously, wow, these guys are, the top 6 are so close together.
Yeah,
This really could be anybody's race.
Just about within a half second, all the way top to 6, right? I mean, talk about close, or 5, excuse me.
Oh yeah. So following CBD driver will be Lakoboro in under, oh, what is that? 200ths of a second? That is insane. Then following behind Lakoboro will be Stubbs McStubbin. And then starting out in the 204s, which is still dangerously close to the top 6, will be Mass Koala with a 204.651. And following Mass Koala will be Papa's House of Games at a 205.397. Coming in at P9 for the starting grid is going to be Nikki Hunt at a 206.22. Or 622, my apologies. And then rounding out the starting grid will be Arrow with a 207.445. Don't let those times fool you, though, folks. They could definitely have a turnaround in the proper race.
Yeah, Toon, no doubt anything could happen here. I mean, I'm going to tell you the dark horse for me in this race is going to be PHG, Papa. I think he's got the knowledge of the track, the skills with the weather. I really see that he's going to probably try and sneak up and get himself onto a podium, not to take away from the folks that have earned their spots in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7. I got a gut feeling that he's going to do well today, so I'm rooting for him.
And getting word that we have another super chat, $5 from Horn of Plenty. Shout out to McNaughty for a great league. Thank you, Horn of Plenty.
That is awesome. Yeah, we can't thank you guys enough for that support. The drivers will catch on to that as they get done with their races. I don't know how many of them are listening to the stream, and how many of them have their tunes going in their headphones to stay focused. So we definitely want to make sure those guys know. Blow up the chat. Let's hear who you guys think is going to win. Who's your dark horse? Who's going to win? Is it going to be Sophie? Is she just going to hold it out from beginning to end? Toon, take us through the start here.
All right, so we have a grid sort of false start check, and we got to make sure that we get off to a proper start here. Everything seems to be crisp and clean coming off the starting grid, so let's see how it goes going into turn 1. Looks like we've got Sophia maintaining first position. Got Shaggy Doo falling dangerously close behind. What is that? 0.167 seconds behind? We've got a nice little train of cars coming into the S's.
Yeah, they're stacked up, trying to fit in line and follow each other. Oh, we've got somebody off here. Looks like Chief Apollo's off.
Oh, that is unfortunate. Let's see where Chief Apollo is.
It looked like he got, I don't know if he got caught up against somebody or bailed out, missed his brake spot coming into the S's there, or what happened. But yeah, he ended up in the grass there, and this pack is moving quick. So, but before he blinked, they were 5-6 cars that had passed him.
I'm just glad that there wasn't any real contact or carnage going into the first turn, because everybody knows, at least over in daily races, turn 1 can always be a nut house.
Shaggy taking the inside there.
Yep. All right, let's see here. Got a nice little group of 3 cars fighting for number 1. Following close behind CBD driver is Stubbs McStubbin in P4. I think we're going to be bunched up for at least a little bit. Oh, a little bit of contact there.
Little contact. Hey, AG, amateur Gran Turismo driver. Good looking out with the $5 donation. Production just got that in our ears. Wow, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Hopefully you get to join us in the next season of the league here. So, wow, look at that. CBD driver and Shaggy 1 and 2, huh?
Oh yeah, Sophia's dropped all the way down to P3, but now there's a question with that contact that was, I believe, in Spoon. Is that going to warrant a steward's inquiry or not?
That might. Like I said, I didn't necessarily expect anything like that, but racing does happen. So I would imagine that wasn't intentional, probably just a missed break point or just maybe not looking in the mirrors.
Now, interestingly enough, spectating Sophia, she's on mediums. That's a bold choice.
Oh, that's a really good point. I wonder kind of where everybody started here. I'll go through it real quick. It looks like
Oh,
Shaggy's on soft, CBD's on soft, so
as we
Sophie's on
see,
mediums.
well, we've actually got drivers that just went into the pits. Some swapping off the hards onto the mediums. I guess they're trying to get the looser compounded tires out of the way. That way they can run the rest of the race on soft, which is a very clever strategy, trying to get the undercutting.
It really is.
Now coming
yeah,
into Dunlop, we've got Stubbs in P4, Sophia in P3, holding Stubbs off in those mediums. So let's see how she can perform with the, as some would consider, weaker compound of tires as we go up into the hairpin.
Yeah, I heard something from the drivers that said, some of those guys can get 14 laps out of those softs. So, that really gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of roll through the mediums and hards and get onto those soft compounds towards the end of the race and try and hold that sticky compound for you when you really want to get into the hard racing.
Oh, absolutely. Now, they also do have to be aware of their fuel consumption, though, so I would not be surprised if some of the racers have to do a splash and dash when they're changing the tires.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that I know how long the fuel's going, and maybe that's where I'm getting the 14 laps. It could be the fuel, it could be the soft. To be honest with you, a lot of these drivers were really keeping their information pretty close to the chest for this. And while we do want to pick their brains a little bit and kind of see what's going on, we do love to see that competitiveness and that.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. Sophia just made an accusation of a push to pass. That's that's not good. We may actually have a genuine stewards inquiry about that incident. But only time will tell, and if we do get news, we will be sure to let you know. Now let's take a look here. Shaggy's still maintaining a just under a second lead in first, coming out now, making his way into the S's. My apologies. Followed by CBD Driver and Sophia with Stubbs McStubbins still in fourth. Sophia is doing a dynamite job holding off everybody behind her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't see who she thinks did the push to pass. I don't know if it was CBD, Shaggy, or Stubbs.
She had made a claim for Shaggy in the game chat.
Interesting.
Now,
okay.
As we see the lead between Shaggy Doo and CBD Driver increasing ever so slightly coming into Degna 1. Maintaining that lead now coming into Degna 2. Let's see how Shaggy does with the hairpin and maintaining his lead as he sets a purple sector. And
Shaggy going
nicely
purple.
held. Ooh, nicely held coming through the hairpin. That's honestly one of the areas I thought the drivers would have a bit of difficulty.
It's really interesting
coming up
to see Sophie in this group running mediums. I think she's the only one in that top 5 group that's got the mediums on there. You get back to the next group, and you got Lakoboro running mediums, Pop on mediums, Chiefs on soft, but obviously he had an issue going off track, and then Arrows on mediums. So it looks like the tire compound really split everybody up here in the beginning of the race.
I feel like, yeah, this change in starting strategy will definitely set the grid for a little bit. But there is always the opportunity for some of the drivers to go and get their undercuts underway and get on those softer compounds after taking off the harder compounds so that they can hopefully hit a top 5 or even a podium. Maybe even a victory. Anything can happen.
Shaggy go purple there on the third section. He looks like he put up a purple lap there on his most recent lap.
Oh, that's awesome. Now coming into 130R with Papa's House of Games. Holding it flat. Yeah, these guys are just full sending it, and I don't blame them. Coming into the Casio Triangle. Nicely held through the first chicane and the second chicane. Papa's definitely flying through here.
And Lakoboro's gone into the pits. He's got to change his tire compound.
Ooh, Lakoboro's already changing. What will Lakoboro change into? While we wait and see what Lakoboro changes onto, let's see how Papa does coming into the first bend. Oh, all right, Lakoboro is changing onto...
Oh, he's on the soft.
Lakoboro's onto the soft. Lakoboro has checked off all of his pits. Let's see if he can run these softs for the remaining 16 laps.
even if he needs one more pit for some fresh softs, I think that's a good strategy to get your tire compounds out of the way early and what you got to do. I can't imagine that anybody's going to get an extra set of soft, but hey, with the rain and the weather, it's really hard to say, and I guess it all depends on your track position and what the folks around you are going to do.
Oh, absolutely. Now, as we jump over to Arrow, still on the racing mediums, I wonder if... Oh, I see Arrow's also got traction control on at the moment. A very wise decision, given the slippiness of the track, and especially the curbs.
No
I
question.
wonder if the drivers in the second split are paying close attention to the strategies that the drivers here in the first split are using. And I wonder if they'll be considering adopting any of the strategies to try and give themselves a competitive edge over their fellow drivers.
Yep, that's a really good point. I mean, if it was me and I was getting ready to race in one of somebody else was doing it before me, I want to see what's going on. So, just like when we do our nations or the Manufacturers Cup, if I get a chance to watch some of the folks over in Europe do it before I have to, I want to. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you've got a lot of those folks out there that are just sitting tuning in and trying to see what strategy and what's going on with some of these folks.
That's actually very good. You want every competitive edge that you can get. So if you can watch the drivers in the upper splits or those that have races before you do, to take every opportunity you can get. Now, Arrow's coming into the Casio Triangle, held it nicely, clipping those chicanes just right as to avoid spinning out, and coming across the line with a 2:08.589 for their personal fastest lap. Let's see how the rest of the competition's doing.
That's a good lap from Arrow.
Oh yeah, got Shaggy coming through Degna 2, coming up into the hairpin with CBD driver hot on his tail. It's amazing that Shaggy's been able to keep CBD right behind him this entire race.
Yeah, and Shaggy put up a purple again.
Oh yeah, but now the question will become, will Shaggy be able to hold it, because we're only through the first quarter of the race.
Yeah, there is a lot of driving to be done, and you know what? Honestly, I think you mentioned it earlier, Tim, that this rain's going to keep coming. So, these guys have got a lot of tricky, challenging driving to do, and I'm actually looking at Sophie back in a couple positions, and believe it or not, she's touching the curbs a little bit more than I expected some of these folks to do. I'm scared to death of them when it rains, but the more that you practice and the more these folks have gotten comfortable with kind of what's going on, boy, they are really putting down some incredible laps. So we are getting to witness something special here. I'm sure race 2 will be no exception.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, what's interesting me, though, is how... Oh, Sophia's coming into the pits. Is she going to be hopping onto the hard compound or going onto the softs? Now, that is one big glaring issue, is these drivers being mindful of the tires that they are on, because there are quite some drastic consequences for not using all of the tire compounds that are required for these drivers, not including the 1-minute penalty that the game will smack you on the hand with after the race is concluded. Now,
and honestly,
coming through into Dunlop corner. Let's see real quick.
Sophie went on the hards, by the way. And to your point, that when you're in a league like this, you got to make sure you're following the rules. In addition to that penalty that they might just give you through the game, the stewards would probably have to take action if you missed a tire compound. And honestly, if you think about it, if somebody ran 3 sets of softs on here, you're definitely going to be faster than everybody. Is it going to be faster in a minute? Probably, right? So I think that just makes sense. You have to regulate.
Absolutely. If you miss all 3 of your tire compounds, don't think you're not at risk of disqualification for it, because it could be deemed as a form of cheating. As we see, now let's see here. Now, SlowMoe, do my eyes deceive me, or is Lakoboro already up to P7 after ticking off all the required tire boxes?
No, you're correct. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, that strategy is playing out for him right now as you see him Oh wow, just pushing it through, some of those sections there, and I mean, my goodness, had I have done that, I'd have spun out twice every time I hit each curb. So, look at his inputs, look how smooth he's being. To go around that hairpin and just barely breathe on that gas, that's so impressive. These guys they are nailing some laps down for us. So, it's hard to say. Let's see how. There's a pretty big gap between him and Chief Apollo. What's that? About 18 seconds there. But there's plenty of time to close that.
Oh yeah, there's still a ton of racing left to do, and Lakobra's already ticked off all of the required tires. So, outside of maybe a shot of fuel in the pits, Lakoboro doesn't have to worry about a single thing. Sophia changing off of the hards, getting those out of the way.
Yep. Right back in. So it looks like she ran what, 5, then went mediums or went hards, and I'm guessing now she's going to go soft. So let's expect her to try and stay on that compound through the end of the race, if I'm not mistaken here.
Oh, absolutely. I just hope that the drivers are also mindful of their fuel gauge as the race progresses. All right, let's see if where does that put Sophia? Oh, Sophia's coming right out of the pits. Hopefully she's mindful of Lakobra's presence as they come into the first bend.
Yep.
All right, looks like everything's all clear going into the S's. Sophia on the fresher tires, so she won't have quite the edge that Lakoboro has at the moment. But with the tire wear consumption, those tires will be up to snuff very, very soon. Sophia coming through the S's nicely. Now let's see where MK's at. MK is about to approach Spoon. Now, I think Spoon's also one of the more dangerous sections of this track. As you saw in like the GT broadcast earlier today, people could go off there and it can really set you back.
Well, yeah, and I found it interesting that even as it started drying out, different sections were kind of dry where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to, or might not make sense, or, the rain's unpredictable, and it really adds a really challenging element to, what you can and cannot get away with, so.
As we see, just well, flying through the Casio triangle. My goodness!
Yeah,
just obliterated that. That was brave.
Oh, I nailed it. Again, that's why these guys are competing, and I'm up here talking about it. So,
oh yeah,
look at those guys go.
Oh yeah, could not in my wildest dreams keep up to any of the talent that we have here competing in the league.
I'd be in the way.
Oh. Absolutely, same here. I'd be a back marker and they'd be yelling at me to move. As we see Pop's House of Games in P10, rocking the racing softs. Still plenty of time to move up into the rankings. Let's see how he does.
He's right behind Nikki, right? So.
Oh yeah. They also do need to be mindful of that dirty air coming into 130R. That could, if they're too close, they could run too wide and it could ruin their lap. Ooh, flying out of the Casio triangle. Very nice. Arrow is now going into the pits. About to swap tires. On lap 7 with 57% of fuel. Ooh, maybe might need a little bit of a splash before they go.
Yep. Maybe a little dash and splash. And, you got Sophie running in 6th position now. Shaggy and CBD are still 1-2 with Stubbs right there in 3rd. And if you look at the top 3, they're all on softs. Let's see, 4 softs. It's soft compounds all the way down to Nikki Hunt. Then Arrow is obviously on the softs now. So everybody is on softs right now except Nikki Hunt.
Ooh, I hope Nikki's aware of that fact, because if they let the competition pass him too much, then he may not be able to make up as much time as he could if he quickly goes and jumps onto the softs and gets a splash of fuel.
Right, yeah, and why run the mediums too long, right? Get onto those good compounds and try to stay sticky and as quick as you can.
All right, let's see. Shaggy coming across the line with 2:04.845. Not as fast as some of the previous laps, but that's okay. We still got just a little over half the race to go.
Now in Toon, look at that. His tires are about halfway through on the softs. It looks like his gas gauge is about halfway down.
I'd say about still got 2/3 of life in those tires, just under half fuel. So I think Shaggy might want to start pondering when to jump off those softs and get onto a different compound, because our top three, I believe, our top three, I believe, has not came into the pits yet to change off those tires once.
No, I believe you to be correct, and yeah, I think that's a pretty regular strategy if you're starting in the front, what, 4 or 5, where you want to get on the good compounds, get that lead out and established. And then by the time you switch to the different compounds, you've got a little bit more space. You might not be fighting for positions quite as much, and sometimes that can be easier to do on the stickier compounds.
Oh yeah, I wonder how many of them might be trying to take a page out of Team Subaru's book from the Manufacturer Series earlier today and trying to just give themselves enough of a lead to where they have essentially a free pit stop.
Yeah, and how about that? I mean, what an interesting strategy race, but boy, Team Subaru just could not hold off that Porsche with the compound difference.
Yeah, I really hope that's not a omen of things to come, as we see Chief Apollo coming through the hairpin all by his lonesome, with a 16-second gap between himself and Masquala, and a 19-second lead ahead of Sophia.
Yeah, nothing but space, and in my opinion, that's the best thing that could ever happen, is to get some room away from some folks and be able to kind of get into your zone and not have people fighting you for your line and or position or anything like that. The only advantage you can really get is if you get somebody that's a good running partner to maybe catch that slipstream and try and pick up some speed to the folks in front of you. But I think we all know if you're racing against somebody, you're probably not going as fast as you could be if you were racing with them.
Ooh, Chief Apollo dangerously cut the grass there. That could have gone sideways very easily.
And
let's see. We see Lakoboro and Sophia going on into 130R. Let's see if they're going to help each other go through and catch up to the pack in tandem, or if they're just going to be in their own little battle for a little bit. Lakoboro coming down into second gear for the Casio Triangle, staying hot on Sophia's tail.
Right, if you're Lakoboro, just follow, right?
Oh yeah, on some fairly fresh soft tires as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those tires have not seen a lot of wear and tear yet. I don't know if it's tire saving or what, but Lakoboro's going to have those things hanging on for the next 10 laps.
Well, in Toon, are you seeing anybody short shifting or really, doing a little bit more to manage fuel? I don't know that I've caught anybody doing, fuel management specifically, but that's a strategy these guys could work as well, considering the rain.
Oh, I'm seeing Lakoboro shifting all over the place, doing some half shifts, 3/4 shifts, shifting down to get some rotation, then kicking right back up. This is these gearboxes are putting in their work today.
Yeah, they are.
Coming through Dunlop, everything looking business as usual and tidy. Going into Degna 1. Yeah, Sophia's holding on to that distance between herself and Lakoboro. Oh, looks like she's also got a 20-second gap between herself and Chief Apollo. I don't know if they're getting away or if she's trying to just maintain Lakoboro's place in P7, but I do believe that within the next couple laps that will have a drastic change because of our race leaders needing to go and get into the pits to get off those soft tires.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing there is that difference in the pit time, the fact that Sophie's already gone through both her required compounds and is on the last one. I think that's where that 20-second gap is coming from. And as we start to see those folks go through the pits and even that up, that will definitely disappear a little bit here and there. So
let's take a look at Papa's House of Games. Has a 18-second deficit behind Lakoboro, but has a almost 25-second lead ahead of Arrow. That is staggering.
Yeah, and he's got good-looking soft tires on there. 3/4 fuel. Like I said, we all know Papa knows what he's doing behind that wheel. So he is going to be in this race and all the way through it, and he is always going to finish, never quit. He has got this. So. I always expect him to be competitive, and there's a lot of racing left. We're only halfway through. We're on lap. Papa just started lap 11, so there is a lot of racing left to watch here today.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised at the level of practice that the drivers have put in, because we haven't really seen any major incidents outside of, what, 3? Like,
Well, yeah.
they've been practicing like crazy, and it shows.
And I'm glad you said it, because if there's an announcer's curse, I don't want to be the one who did it. But they really have been very clean. Most everybody's been on the concrete for the most of this race. Now, granted, as those tires start slipping away, we can expect to see that change a little bit. But to what extent, we're going to have to wait and see.
Now jumping over to CBD driver in second place with just under a half-second deficit behind Shaggy Doo, but almost 5.5-second lead over Stubbs. They are really not giving up. I really hope they're not getting tunnel vision fighting for P1.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
And then it also raises the question, have they practiced on those harder compound tires? I know they've got to use them less, but they still have to use them regardless. So if they're going to be trying to tackle some of these racing lines on mediums or hards, it may spell disaster in every way, shape, and form.
It may, and I don't know if you saw that, but as you know, Shaggy was going around one of those turns, it looked like his the back end got a little bit loose. Those tires could really be playing a factor for him trying to push in first, and it's just so important that you keep the car pointed in the right direction. We all know how fast that can slip out of control in this rain.
Oh yeah. Now, we should also throw out that the racers are also gaining standing points based on total race time.
Yeah, it's not just where you finish your split, but total race time. Oh, and look at CVD driver is right on Shaggy. I think he's going to go to the inside. Shaggy, it looks like he's slipping a little bit, maybe not. One thing that I will tell you, I've watched Shaggy race before, and for somebody that's on a pad, his inputs are just so smooth. I've watched some of those guys on pad, and you just hear the car going every time they try and turn. And just watch how smooth Shaggy maneuvers that guy around on a controller. It's really impressive.
Oh yeah, you can do well no matter what input method you have. If you have just a pre-owned controller from GameStop, $5,000 sim rig, and everything in between, it doesn't matter what you're running. It doesn't make you any less of a driver. It comes down to, at the end of the day, how you handle and how you master your desired platform and input method of choice.
That is a great point.
CBD run a little bit wide. Let's hope that doesn't cost him too much time. Looks like he was able to make it up in the Casio triangle just a little bit, get that gap back down to under 1 second.
Yeah, and I got to bet that Shaggy's eyeing up the pits in the next lap or two here. I don't know for a fact, but that's 13 that he just started. I don't know if he's really how far he's going to push these tires. What's the risk worth? But we're going to have to wait and see when he comes in. But I'm going to tell you, I bet it's either this lap or the next one.
Maybe. I know it would be foolish for the drivers up at the front of the pack to try and bank on gaining a massive lead and then trying to change onto the last 2 required tires on the final 2 laps. So I really hope they have a contingency plan in mind as we see Nicky Hunt come through Degna 2, cutting a lot of that grass and achieving a half-second penalty as a result. You got to be careful with this, folks. Coming in a little deep into the hairpin. Feels like Nicky might be feeling a little out of sorts, but we still have 8 laps of racing, so there is tons of time to try and make that up.
Yeah, and on the soft compound, I think Nicky's in a great spot there where he can just push and try and keep the car on the track and keep it pointed forward. I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of penalties, obviously bouncing back and forth from drivers. I think that's really important to these guys is to run clean, no penalties, stay on the track, and when you get this rain, boy, that's going to make all the difference. So I think that penalty could really make a big difference in the final time as well.
Oh, without a doubt. Now let's check on Sophia, still in P6, holding off Lakoboro with a 20-second deficit behind Chief Apollo, but that pit stop, that gap will close extremely quickly. And we've got Lakoboro with about 1.6 seconds behind. That's still very close, and on the straights that might just be a hair outside slipstream range, but P6 is definitely not out of the picture for Lakoboro at this current moment.
No, not at all. And he's doing what we talked about not that long ago, maybe a lap or two. He is following and just keeping up as best he can. And trying to keep that gap in order and maybe stay in the slipstream. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it's raining a little harder than it was just a lap or two ago, too. So, that's also going to have an impact on these guys and how they're.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It feels like a lot of this race not only is a massive game of strategy, but it might also be a bit of a mental game. As you were saying, it appears that the rain may be coming down a little harder, but according to that rain gauge, it looks like it's been the same since the start. So I don't know if anybody else might be sharing those sentiments or if they might be overthinking. Lakoboro cutting chicane in the Casio Triangle quite a bit. Let's hope he doesn't incur a penalty. And coming down across the line with a 2:04.121, setting a new personal fastest lap. That's great, chipping away at some of that time, and hopefully over the remainder of the race, that'll help close the gap between himself, Sophia, and the rest of the competitors. All right, as we see Stubbs McStubbin coming in through the hairpin, holding a clean line, staying off that curbing, masterfully done. And with a 3.15 second deficit behind CBD driver, but a respectable 10.5 second lead ahead of Masquala as he comes through Spoon. Ooh, beautifully done. Beautifully done.
So
That's
smooth, keeping the car pointed forward.
That's definitely a spot that you can tell people have practiced because of how easy it is to run wide or spin out, especially in this rain. Coming through 130R, holding it flat out, clipping the grass on the left just a little bit. Now, as
did you notice Stubbs' fuel there? Look at the fuel gauge here. Stubbs got to go in. Got to pick.
Oh my word!
There it is. Yeah. Okay. Stubbs was definitely out of fuel there. Looks like Shaggy's gone in as well. Mm-hmm. So that puts CBD driver up into the lead. And again, he's on the soft.
Oh, yeah. Look at that stark contrast between the fuel gauge on CBD and Stubbs. CBD, Stubbs, and Shaggy. Looks like CBD was able to just conserve fuel a teensy bit better, which will give CBD, of course, a much larger gap between himself and some of the others that have already pitted. We may see CBD driver come into the pits in the next lap or two and be able to come out still in first.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. It looks like he's got a 13-second gap there between him and MK. And I think that's a little bit less than what a pit stop is going to be, but every second counts. And man, just to see that he's going to get an extra lap out of his gas that Shaggy wasn't able to, for me personally, I think that's a huge advantage.
Oh, it's a massive advantage, especially because CBD's still on the softer compounded tires. So depending on what tires CBD driver went in with at the beginning of the race, it could just be jumping onto something, say the mediums, or doing a quick stint on the hards and getting a splash of fuel and off to the races you go. As we see CBD driver coming smoothly through Spoon, like it's second nature, really.
Right. Just nice and easy. And I would imagine he's boxing this lap, right? Or not? Do you think he's going to push that gas one more?
Ooh, no. I don't think that would. I don't think that'd be a wise call. Judging by that fuel gauge, I think this is it, or run the risk of running out of fuel in the next one.
Right.
Now let's see if CBD driver will wisen up and go into the pit. Yep. There we go. CBD's in the pits. I'm glad that CBD was able to see reason. Now all we got to hope is that CBD is able to come out ahead of Shaggy and Chief Apollo. All right, Masquala as well has gone into the pits. Oh, look at that pass into the Casio Triangle. Wow. Looked like there was a ding of contact, though, as Shaggy Dude goes into the pits as well to get off those hards.
Yeah, Shaggy's done with the hards.
Oh, I think Chief Apollo needs to be mindful of that fuel gauge. It's looking dangerously low right now.
Wow. It really is. And he's still got the soft compounds on. So, if I remember correctly, I don't think he started on those and made a switch into them. to the point of what we heard, it looked like Shaggy got about 14 laps out of those soft compounds, and then you saw CBD maybe get that extra lap out of it. So it looks like that might be about what they're going to be able to get out of the compounds for those softs.
And that poses the question for the drivers in the second split: do they start out on the softs and try and get a gap, or do what Sophia and Lakoboro did and get off the harder compounds as fast as they can? That way they can push the softs to their absolute limit for the remainder of the race.
Well, and Toon, you bring up a great point. And if you look at Sophie right now, just less than a second behind Shaggy in 5th place. So, definitely that strategy is not bad at all. And not to mention the tire advantage, right? Shaggy's come off the softs, but that's what she's on. So she is right behind him. Looks like she's probably going to be able to work a pass here. I'm taking the inside. I'm going to push through. I think Shaggy's going to have to let her have that, right? He can't really fight too much. Considering the tire compound, again, like I said earlier, if she gets in front of you, man, I just want to follow as close as I can.
Oh, yeah. Sophia's definitely got speed on her side. And since she does have the tire advantage, is this the point where she starts smelling blood in the water? Or is she just going to try and keep a steady pace for the race and then fully send it for the last few laps?
I don't know. I would have to tell you to smell blood in the water if it was me, or I was trying to win. You're not fighting for second, you're fighting for first. And I know that some of these folks are fighting not to be eliminated, but you got other people that are looking at the long game, and they don't want to give up any points to anybody in any way, shape, or form that they can have. So I would say that's one of those scenarios where you're going to see, and you got Chief Apollo and CBD both in the pits. So that's definitely going to put. Yeah, Sophie. That's going to put Sophie right up behind the koala.
Wow, Chief Apollo really played a dangerous game with that fuel, coming in with about 3%. All right, so that puts Sophia with a 6.5 deficit behind Masquala, and Shaggy is still hot on her tail, trying to get as much slipstream as possible. That's really where you can get some sort of advantage running on the lesser compounded tires. Yeah, it looks like the field is... Ow. Yeah, the field is coming back together as it was in the beginning, slowly but surely.
Yeah, how neat is it to watch that strategy play out, and then all of a sudden, the field separates, and now they're back together, and these folks gotta, race against their opponents a little bit more closely for the actual last 3.5, 4 laps here.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, did you just see somebody else join the lobby? That was odd. This is a closed circuit, folks. Now Lakoboro's coming into the hairpin, holding it nicely. That's mesmerizing. The areas I thought people would have the most difficulty with, it seems to be a walk in the park for them. That definitely shows how much practice can definitely help you, especially in such a competitive league such as this. Ooh, yeah, Paul ran a little wide and spoon.
Your point, I'm watching Lakoboro's inputs and that, that trail braking and just the way that it rolls onto that throttle, in the right way. For those of you guys out here that are trying to figure it out and trying to be competitive, boy, just watch some of these folks and the way they dial in their inputs. And Lakoboro went a little bit wide there, but again, didn't oversteer and didn't freak out, and just kind of brought it back onto the concrete. Toon made a great point earlier. You can do it on any input, whether it's a Logitech, the low grade or the DD Pros versions or the Fanatechs. You got guys that are competing on a variety of different stuff here. So, the most important thing is that you enjoy the game and race the right way.
Without a doubt. All right, let's see. What are we looking at here for P3? Shaggy Doo's got a 2-second deficit behind Sophia. That jumped quickly, but still holding a over 2.5-second lead to Chief Apollo in P4. This could be... that was dangerously close on the grass there, Shaggy. Gotta be careful.
That was. He didn't just breathe on it. He didn't cough on it. I think he reached over and grabbed a couple pieces of grass on that, but he still got the car pointed in the right direction and didn't lose a ton of ground. I'll tell you, look at Masquala getting a little bit of space from Sophie now. 3-second lead. It's kind of flexing there between 3 and 2.8, 2.7. But boy, that's interesting to see on the mediums even.
Oh yeah. It seems if anybody wants to try and close their gaps outside of having a good slipstream on the person in front of you, the hairpin, spoon, and the Casio triangles are probably going to be your best bets to try and close those gaps, because if you nail it, that time deficit between you and the person in front of you is going to get marginally smaller.
Yeah. And how sweet is that that livery on Mass Koala, the Lucky Charms? It got to be another Sugar Shuffles, right?
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah.
That livery is just magically delicious.
Ah, well done. Where did you go? I see.
Yeah, you know, I had to get in there. Oh, Mass Koala is running low on fuel, though. I think
he's gonna have to come in.
Yeah, this is gonna be prime time to get in the pits and do a splash and dash,
unless
he has another tire he needs.
And guess who that puts right back into the lead?
Oh, to the surprise of no one, the monster herself, Sophia, will take P1 the moment Mass Koala goes into the pit.
2 laps for her left. You know, you got lap 19 and lap 20. Wait a second.
Yeah.
He's still out? He's still out. Okay. Well, this now has become a risky game, right?
Oh, it's either brave or it's foolish. That fuel gauge is very low, and Koala definitely has an extra lap after this one of racing to do. I hope he doesn't fall victim to what others have and think, oh, this is the last lap, everything's fine, I'll just gun it. And
no, how exciting though.
It is exciting, but you gotta worry about the driver sometimes when it comes to things like this, because that fuel gauge is flashing like crazy. I personally don't know if he's going to be able to conserve fuel enough to be able to finish this lap and get into the pits.
Yeah, and you know, with there being 2 laps to go, you know, the guys in the back are really going to start pushing hard to gain a position or half a position, and there's a lot of things that can still happen here before this race is over.
Oh, absolutely. It's not over until the checker flag drops for everybody.
I am mesmerized by Mass Koala and that fuel gauge, though. I can barely take my eyes off of it.
I wonder how he's going about trying to conserve fuel as he goes through Spoon. He's got enough to probably get him through 130R in the Casio Triangle, but doing another lap is definitely out of the question.
It is.
Look at that. Sophia got a nice run out of Spoon and just inching out P1 from Mass Koala.
And what is it? Help me understand. I don't know why he's trying to go side by side with her. Why not jump in behind and try and take some slipstream? He's going to run out of gas.
Oh, absolutely. That's the tunnel vision that I was afraid of. Sophia flew through 130R, clipping the grass on the way through. Let's see if Mass Koala is going to be reasonable here and go into the pit stop. Yep. All right. Hopefully, looks like he might be doing a splash and dash. Hopefully, he doesn't lose too much time on that, as Sophia takes her place back at P1 after 20 laps.
And yeah, that puts Shaggy Doo, about 3.5 seconds behind her, and Lakoboro right behind Shaggy. So the top 3, you know, within about a 3 to 4 second space, if I'm not mistaken. Look at those guys. Maybe 6 seconds by the third.
Yeah, it looks like Lakoboro is about 6.5, almost 7 seconds away from first place, but he's got Chief Apollo breathing down his neck.
He does. Chief Apollo's right behind him, and you know, looks like he's gaining on him, you know, if you ask me. And I think Chief Apollo could. It's the final lap. Anything can happen. You know, these guys are going to be pushing hard, so hang on, and let's see how they finish.
And Lakoboro's got just enough fuel to get through this lap, so he might just full send the rest of the time as he comes through Degna 2 at an insane pace, running wide, dangerously wide, for that matter.
Lucky he didn't get a penalty, right?
Oh yeah. Track limits as of late have been very weird, so they've got to be extra careful. Looks like Lakoboro's holding on to that lead, but Chief Apollo is not giving up, still breathing down Lakoboro's neck.
No, and I think this is the battle to watch for. You know, I think really, if you look at the front of the pack, Sophie's kind of got this locked up as far as P1. Shaggy's 4 seconds back for P2. Lakoboro's got a 2.5, almost a 3 second gap for 3. But you know, Apollo and him could really trade places if anything changes.
Oh yeah, coming into 130R for the final time with Sophia. Ran it nicely. Some might say maybe a teensy bit wide, but racing lines are absolutely subjective. Staying in second gear for the Casio Triangle. And belting it out. Oh yeah, she knows
Right?
she's got this, and across the line. Sophia takes
Lakoboro with
first place, Shaggy
Chief.
Doo in second, and rounding out
Chief,
the
a
podium
little
is
bit of more
Lakoboro.
space. Yeah.
Oh, what
Wow.
happened to Chief Apollo here?
What happened there?
Oh my lord. Oh, I'm just getting word that Lakoboro might have just pit maneuvered himself. That is unfortunate. Oh, I'm getting word that I misspoke. He lost traction outside of the Casio Triangle and hit the pit wall. So close too. You hate when that happens.
Well, yeah, pushing it coming down to the end of
What's
the of
going on
the
here?
the race.
What on earth?
Don't know.
Well, that was interesting.
Maybe
All right,
input
Nikki Hunt
trouble.
rounding
Hard to say.
P9. Looks like P9 Nikki Hunt's got that position firmly unlocked with an 11-second lead over Arrow.
Yeah, I didn't know how that was going to play out towards the back of the pack.
Neither did I. Looks like Nikki's got about a 1-minute deficit behind a CBD driver.
If you look at the laps, it looks like Nikki was very consistent. Definitely, if you ask me, it looks like went out and ran their race and did everything they could to stay consistent. So you can't be upset with that.
Oh no,
Just
not at all.
because you're in ninth place, it doesn't mean you're going home today.
Oh, absolutely. There's still plenty of opportunities for someone else to go home. So I would not be beating myself up over these placements because it's still anybody's game. It's not over until, as they say, it's over.
Well, and a congratulations to our split victor,
Oh yeah.
Sophie. Wow, bravo, bravo, well done, great race. And look at those folks. We
Started.
do have one clip that might need to be reviewed, but that's not something we can't fix.
Yeah. She definitely finished where she started, and that's honestly what matters. She started pole, and by God, she fought her way up to where she finished in first once again. An exceptional showing from everybody, truly. Now let's see the final results here. So Sophia came in first place with a total race time of 42 minutes and 17 seconds, 0.738. Following about 5 seconds behind her is GSR Shaggy Doo. And in the last of our podium finishers with Lakoboro, about 2.2 seconds, 2.25 seconds behind
Yeah, that's
Shaggy
about
Doo
right.
there. Now rounding out our top 5 with Stubbs McStubbin and Chief Apollo, both a few seconds behind our podium finishers, but that's perfectly okay. And it seems Chief Apollo actually set the fastest lap for the race. That's very impressive.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, and think of that. He set the fastest lap, but then still came in fifth. That really says something about the pace and the the consistency that the top four folks were putting in.
Oh yeah. Now coming into P6 would be Mass Koala, about what is that, 7.5-ish seconds behind Chief Apollo. Then with a surprisingly large gap, this is definitely where the strategy came into effect, is Papa's House of Game, but definitely had an impressive showing. Coming in behind Papa is, of course, CVD Driver that had I want to say interesting finish to the race.
Interesting, unfortunate. I think there's quite a few different words you could put to that, but again, it doesn't mean anything's over. And that rain, boy, I tell you what, coming around that last turn, you mentioned the tunnel vision. There's so many different things that can happen. You've been pushing yourself for the last 30, 35, 40 minutes.
Almost 45.
Yeah, it's a tough race. It's a long, it's a marathon kind of thing, and we're not doing endurance races here, but that's not the shortest race you're going to run.
Oh yeah. Now coming in P9, a minute and a half behind Sophia is Nikki Hunt, whose fastest lap was a 2:07.085. That is a respectable time. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And coming in behind Nikki Hunt in P10 is US at almost was that a minute and 3/4 behind P1. Obviously not a great showing for Nikki Hunt and Arrow, but that's perfectly okay because just because you didn't have a great showing here doesn't mean you're instantly going home. There's always an opportunity for someone else to have a less than pleasant showing as well, and you could come by the skin of your teeth and bounce back for elimination round 2. Now, while everything gets categorized and logged in, we will be taking a short break, so please stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. We are about to get race 2 underway. I am your host, Toon, and followed alongside me is SlowMoe. So, SlowMoe, what did you think of our first showcase in Elimination Round 1?
I thought that was awesome. Really exciting driving. The strategy played out to be exciting as we thought. And like we talked about, watching the field kind of separate as the different tire strategies and fuel strategies played out, and then come back to the last couple laps. We got to see some of those folks racing in line and trying to use Blitzstream, and a couple really close battles at the end. So I don't think it was a big surprise on who won, but this race is going to be an interesting one as well.
Oh, without a doubt. I sure hope the drivers in Split 2 were taking some notes during race 1, though, because there were some very interesting strategies to go about this. Now, let's take a look at the elimination splits. So, SlowMoe, would you like to explain to the viewers at home how the point system for this racing league works?
Yeah, and the points that you're looking at right now on the screen are from the qualifying laps, right? So those folks that had specific qualifying times, the first group was given 5 points, the second group was given 3 points, and everybody else ended up with 0. There were some folks that didn't make qualifying, so there are some of those out there as well. Now, the way this is going to work here is for each split, the first place winner of the split gets 5 points for winning the split, 3 points for second place, and 1 point for third place. And then what they also do is they take the total race time and they're going to put that, kind of like fastest to slowest, and the person who has the fastest total time, or shortest total time, will get 23 points, and it'll just go down there until the slowest person has 1 point. So it's a cumulative type thing going into next week, and it's all point based, but where you finish in your split is also relevant to how many points you take into the next week for elimination.
Fantastic. So let's get over into the game proper and see how everybody's doing in their qualifying and warm-ups. Do you have any thoughts on the second split here? Anybody that's kind of got your attention?
I think it's hard not to bring up the Twitch Taco, who some people will refer to as an alien. Super fast. Does a lot of driving. I believe there's Twitch has or Twitch Taco. He's got a Twitch and also a YouTube, so you can catch him on either one of those platforms. But if I had to pick one person, I'm going to tell you it's going to be Hawko.
That's perfectly fair. I have heard many things about Hawko and about how strong of a competitor he is. Personally, GLK Sneaky still got my favor. I remember when I had the practice lobbies up for the competitors last week for Bathurst and qualifying, Sneaky was in there putting in those reps. I honestly could not be more impressed by that man's work ethic. He definitely wants to go for this. Oh, what? Hold on here. Hawko hasn't shifted up once. Is Hawko trying to burn off as much fuel as possible right now?
That might be a good strategy to lighten that car up for the for the qualifying lap. Look, he's kind of doing it in second now, I guess. So, when you want to talk about strategy, there is not going to be a shortage of that in this race here between some of the folks like Hawko, Vandalay, and you mentioned it with Sneaky. They don't call him Sneaky for nothing.
Oh, absolutely. So I wonder how Hawko is going to do this going into qualifying, because obviously this is not going to be a viable strategy by any means when it comes to the proper race. So do you think Hawko's just going to burn off fuel for this lap and then give it the beans come lap 2?
I mean, that's my guess. Now that we're looking at it and kind of watching it, it's really, to be completely honest, a strategy I never would have considered. So, that's just another example of how some of these guys have really, put a lot of thought and effort into how they want to come out and work through different things this week, and every advantage they can take, they're going to get it.
Let's see if this actually works out in Hawko's favor. I know some other drivers have, look at that little bit of wiggle on the tail end. All right, we've got Fernando coming across in the outlap with a 2:06. So only time will tell if the hot lap will be faster than the outlap, or if it's subject to the usual outlaps, just a teensy bit faster. As Fernando has gone extremely wide, but making sure to ensure Jimmy goes through without any incident. That's good sportsmanship on Fernando's part.
Yeah, it looks like Fred started on mediums for the qualifying lap, so he's gone back into the pits to get that rectified, get that soft compound going. I would imagine that they probably gave him a splash of fuel too. So, unfortunately, he's probably not going to be watching the stream and racing at the same time. I know him pretty well, and he's just got his eye on the track. So I don't think he caught Hawko's strategy. So he'll probably be running his first qualifying lap with a full tank of gas there.
All right, I hope the starting on mediums doesn't give away his strategy going into the main race.
Right? Did he give it away right off the bat?
He may be setting up for a massive undercut like Sophia did, but I just hope I hope nobody else noticed that and took into consideration that potential scenario. Let's see how Jimmy goes coming through Spoon.
Funny, to that same point, if you click over and look at Hawko again, he's still in second gear, just maxing it out. So it looks like he's trying to get down like past what, 3/4 of the tank, maybe down to a half. I don't know.
It's old at the end of the day. I think Hawko may have some inside information to game mechanics that others might not. Because when you take a look at some of the fastest laps for daily races, you never see them doing something like that. Maybe this is maybe it's like Hawko's good luck charm or something. Only he really knows the answer to that. Ooh, Jimmy came across that in the fastest lap with a 2:05.711. This is the start of qualifying, so we all know that is going to drop.
Yeah, and I think you've got most of these folks who are in past their first lap pretty well. Hawko is just letting people pass him. He's riding on the brakes. He's got it in second gear and just dumping fuel. I mean, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. So I'll really be curious to see what kind of qualifying time we see come from there.
It is nothing short of entertaining seeing what Hawko's doing, that's for certain. Speed Racing came in and set a new fastest lap for the qualifying session at the moment with a 2:04.777. That's lucky. As we see Big Joe coming into 130R with a bit of a lift. Haven't seen many people do that. Ooh, flying down into the Casio Triangle. Let's see how he maneuvers this. Clips the first chicane nicely. Just kissing the second chicane. Some might say missed the apex, but looked clean enough to me. As he comes across the line, setting a 2:09.757. That's respectable. There's still plenty of qualifying time left. Maybe he's just getting his bearings. Nobody knows for certain, but you definitely can't count any of these competitors out.
No, and to that same point, we saw folks last in the last split that had to kind of get their bearings, and these guys practice for a week straight, but sometimes even when you get into that race, you got to calm your nerves and get your mind in a good place to go fast again.
Oh, without a doubt. So now we've got Hawko. Oh wow, Hawko burned off quite a bit of fuel in the faffing about. That car's definitely going to be feeling a little bit lighter at least.
Yeah, and it looks like he's pushing it now.
Yeah, it does look like it, giving a nice little lift coming up into Dunlop. Already has the purple sector. All right, a 1/4 second off the fastest lap time as is. Well, let's see how much that's going to drop. As Hawko comes into Degna 1, staying in fit, dropping. Ooh, bit of a power slide there. That was dangerous. That may inevitably cost him quite a bit of precious lap time. Oh wow, not as much as I thought.
Wow.
Okay, forgive me, Hawko. I did not. That is impressive. Coming out of the hairpin and just flooring it up into the entrance of Spoon. I wonder how Hawko came up with this strategy, because this is extremely unique.
It is. I can't. I mean, that's the coolest thing about the league that we've got here is every little strategy play out and be important. And he's showing you right there that he might have found something that not everybody thought of.
Maybe Hako is a bit of an alien. That is a strategy that I don't think anybody would have considered. That's on a completely different level. All right, as we see, the current fastest lap is set by Salamander with a 2:03.880. Let's see if Hako has just torn that to shreds. As he comes across the line with a 2:02.535.
Oh
that is
golly.
mesmerizing.
Oh, is that purple or green? What's going on here?
Oh my lord. Okay, Hako is definitely going to be one to watch out for going forward.
Wow.
I thought Hako was just faffing about. There was definitely some solid logic behind it. Let's see how Salamander can respond to that. Salamander coming through Spoon, taking a nice line, dropping down into second to get some extra rotation, and then short shifting up to third. Fantastic. Riding that curb a little bit. Dangerous game.
Yeah, and he's pushing it. Obviously you can tell he's not trying to limp around or anything. He wants to get a good lap up. So looks like he's got his personal best there. But man, 2025. Goodness, I don't know if we're going to see any more of those or not.
Something tells me Hako's just getting warmed up as we see Salamander come into the pits. What is this strategy? Alrighty, Speed Racer coming up into... Oh, I think Speed Racer saw Hako's strategy and is giving it a shot himself.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It might be.
Speed Racer's trying to burn through as much fuel as humanly possible. That's... I think Hako's just set an example for the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at somebody like Jimmy K9, for example, he's just down below a quarter of a tank. He's just used about a quarter of a tank, just a little more than that. So you compare that to somebody like Hako, who's just about at a half a tank. Boy, when you're talking about going this fast, that fuel has weight to it, and it all makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. There's no shortage of brilliance when it comes to the drivers in this league. Everybody's got their own strategies, everybody's got their own racing styles, and it's apparent in every single lap that we see from our talented drivers. And speaking of our talented drivers, I would like to remind everybody once again that this league is 100% community funded. So super chats, super stickers, donations in any way, shape, form, or fashion are thrown right back into the league and into the driver pool. So if you like what you see and want to support the drivers, please consider doing that alongside liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications for this stream. And be sure to spread the word about this league and this broadcast to anybody you feel might be interested. We would love to see this broadcast and this league grow exponentially going into future seasons.
Yeah, and a big shout out to those of you guys who have donated and supported some of these drivers. I know there was a lot of sponsorships for folks to enter where, some people had said, hey, I can't drive in the league, but let me sponsor somebody that might be able to. So big shout out to anybody who has put in a little bit to make this league what it is. It's really something special here, so we really want to see this continue.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen absolutely beautiful things happen between people sponsoring other drivers so they can have a shot at the league, the donations, and just the love and support this broadcast and this league has gained thus far in these past couple weeks. Now let's take a look at Sneaky coming in outside of the Casio Triangle down the downhill section, setting a 2:02.607. Sneaky's getting close. Sneaky already within half a second of Hako. I feel that given just a little bit more time and a little more fuel burn, Sneaky's going to be right on Hako's tail.
Yeah, and to your point, he didn't use the same strategy. So, does that put Hako at a little bit of an advantage over? And Hako's just kind of working around a little bit of slower traffic there. I think that was probably a lap that he's going to ride off, 2:05.091. But, you can see some of these other folks that are trying to get that time down and get themselves a good starting spot in the grid.
Oh, yeah. As we see Jimmy Canine come off on after Degna 1. Oh, Salamander's got a half-second penalty coming into Degna 2. Now, this is really interesting. Jimmy's on intermediates. I wonder what he's thinking. Is he going to try and run intermediates for a little bit, or is he just trying to warm up and then kick onto the big boy tires or the slicks for the proper race?
You know, Toon, I'll tell you, the couple laps that I ran, I started doing intermediates, and one of the guys in the lobby had said, hey, man, just run the softs and maybe try some traction control as opposed to doing that. You know, boy, there's enough strategy that goes into this race as it is without adding an extra tire compound, right? These guys got to use all three compounds, so I don't know that I'd incorporate an extra one, whether it even be for qualifying.
Oh, without a doubt. As we see Corridor leading a little pack of 3 coming into 130R. Let's see, will Corridor be holding it flat or will he be lifting? A little bit of a lift, perfectly understandable. Still a beautiful run through 130R as we come into the Casio Triangle. Oh, cutting the first chicane like crazy. That was, that was brave. Maybe pushing foolish. That may have cost him more time. Now, I just got word from production that we have another super chat from Chief Apollo with $20. Shout out to Toon, SlowMoe, TCase for great commentary, and Sugar Shuffle for Salamander for putting together great liveries. Thank you so much, man. That means
is
a lot
awesome.
from all of us. Now, let's take a look how Art Vandalay is doing at this current moment. Just came out of the Casio Triangles teams. Coming into the start-finish, setting a 2:06.191. Not a bad time by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it looks like Fredbird's actually gone in the pits.
Do you think Fredbird's done with qualifying, or what do you think thought process is there?
Well, and as I'm looking at the laps, it didn't look like he was hitting that consistency. So maybe he's coming into the pits. Maybe needs a little second to get ready for the race. I don't know, because we're probably coming up here on the end of qualifying, if I'm not mistaken.
It is definitely approaching closing time for qualifying, so I don't blame Fredbird for coming in to take a breather. As we've got Hako just still out having a grand old time, blowing through fuel, but now it looks like Hako's not really blowing through as much fuel. I mean, outside of obviously revving the nuts out of his car, seems like the rest is just business as usual. Maybe a teensy bit of fuel saving depending on those shifts. As we saw him shift down to first and then back up to second. Well, I think Hako's about to make this last showing count. Jimmy's jumping onto the hards. Let's hope he's not giving away some strategy there. That might be a little bit of risky business. Hako coming through Spoon in magnificent fashion. He's definitely out here to make a statement.
He is just ripping this track apart. I know we've seen some other folks that are not far behind him with Sneaky and Sal, but Twitch is not done. If you see that purple, I guess aliens are purple instead of green. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe. Do you think Hako's about to set a 2:01?
Could very well be. Let's find out.
As we come into the final straight, getting close to that, dangerously close to that wall. 2:02.060, so close to a 2:01, but my God, is that not an impressive showing?
He did everything he could to prove you right there with the 2:01.
Oh yeah, he was right there. That is some scary time. I think the drivers here are also going to have a pretty severe uphill battle. Seems like splits 1 and 2 just have drivers in a league of their own up at the top. They, I hope this qualifying is going to push them to better themselves mid-race, because as you can see, just because qualifying says one thing, doesn't mean the race is going to be the same. Some people are, as you said, better in traffic and better in proper race as opposed to qualifying.
And if you look at Sneaky, for example, he's not far off that pace, right? I mean, he's only what 3/10 off that. So I mean, he's not far behind. and then you got Sal, who's maybe about a second, a little more behind Sneaky. So I think the front of the pack is really going to be fast here, and we're going to see some exciting racing. Make no mistake about it.
Oh, absolutely. And speed is definitely not the deciding factor here. Strategy is going to play an even bigger part in the race when we get started. Because if you don't have a stellar start for the grid start, that may come to bite you pretty quickly. And if you're trying to just milk the sauce but don't have as much of a lead ahead of your peers, by the time you come out, that favorable position you were in may be completely out of reach.
Yeah, and Toon, what's your thought? If you're somebody like in a Fredbird position and you think you're going to start towards the back, are you starting on the soft or the hard compounds first?
Personally, in my experience, whenever we have like daily races that require the use of two separate compounds, I try and get my stints in the harder compounds out of the way as fast as possible so I can try and do the undercut and put myself in a favorable position. Because as you know, in daily races, you'll see people starting on, like, say, softs and then running those until they're completely bald and going into the pits. And by the time they come out, if that lead's not big enough, somebody that's done the undercut is going to be, 5-6 seconds ahead of them? It can really, the timing is everything. At the end of the day, the timing is everything when it comes to your strategy, your fuel consumption. There's so many factors here that anybody's game. At the end of the day, it is literally anybody's game. And as we see the field, we've got down at the back of the pack, we've got, at the back of the pack, we've got Big Joe and AngryFredbirds in the 207 and 209 range, but that is a perfectly acceptable position because this is anybody's race when you break it down. Now, coming into the top, we have Twitch Hako with an insane time, absolutely mind-boggling. And following less than half a second behind him is GLK Sneaky, who set a very, very competitive time. And then coming in third place is Salamander MN with a 203.828. Not too far behind. That's definitely still a point of pressure for Sneaky. Coming in behind Salamander is Speed Race with a 204.5. And coming in dangerously close behind Speed Racer is Art Vandalay with a 204.989. I see the top 5 is actually quite close. That's going to be interesting when we get the race started. Now, over in P6, we have Corridor with a 205.614, just a little bit of a, what is that, about 7/10 behind Art Vandalay. That's still slipstream range. So I wouldn't be breathing a sigh of relief if I were Art. Coming in behind Corridor, we have Jimmy K9 with a 205.711. That is a photo finish level close. Coming in behind Jimmy, we have Fernando with a 207.092. Not a bad time. The start and strategy will be everything for everybody from P1 down to the last. If you were in this race properly, what do you think your strategy would be? Like, from a spectator's point of view, what do you think the ideal strategy is?
Personally, I think the best strategy for this race is really going to be to get out with whatever group is out front first. If this is me, I'm really going to start softs and try and keep up with anybody. I don't want anybody to get away from me throughout the race. I don't know that necessarily that's the right play, but for the strategy that I've always used, I like to get out in front with the front group and try and stick with them. And then once you get a little bit of space, you can switch to some of those more slick compounds, kind of like the Subaru theory that we saw earlier today in the Manufacturers Cup. Even though it didn't necessarily work out for them, that's generally going to be the approach that I would try and personally take.
Okay, so try and start out strong, get your pace set up, and then try and ride it for the remainder?
Yeah, maybe even get a little bit of space, possibly, hold your position for, if you're going to stretch those softs out for 14 laps and you can do that, Maybe have a little bit of that extra space considering the weather. There's so many different things at play here. And honestly, if you can keep up with the Hawko, the Sneaky, the Art Vandalay, and some of those guys in the 4 or 5, you're really going to have a chance of getting some good points or maybe even getting a.
Yeah, that's a very solid strategy. I don't know. That also helps showcase like how different strategies apply to different people, because you would start out on the softer compounds and then work your way back, as I would try and get the harder compounds out of the way and take my chances on the undercut. That way I can give myself a little bit of breathing room, because I'll be pitting before everybody else to get off the harder compounds and onto the softer ones, knowing that my car and tire saving strategy is up to snuff for it. And then while everybody else is in the pits trying to go about their usual goings on, swapping to their harder compounds, getting a splash of fuel if necessary, I can use that as my opportunity to pounce ahead of them and hopefully put myself into a position where they can't catch up, and I can spend the rest of the race as a glorified time trial. So I go with an opportunistic approach, but your strategy and every strategy, of course, is extremely viable if you know how to run it and it feels comfortable to you.
Yeah, and I think we saw that in the first split, right? You had a variety of different strategies, and in the end, they all played out to bring the pack back together for the last couple laps. And these guys still have to run, for those last few laps, likely in traffic, regardless of what compound you might be on at that. So I think that plays a big factor into it, And to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if some folks at the back of the field getting those more tricky compounds out of the way, so maybe they can try and make a run. I mean, Toon, do you take a different strategy if you're on the bubble as opposed to potentially a front runner in the race?
Personally, whenever I'm running a race that requires different compounds, I try and keep a consistent strategy depending on if I'm starting in the top 5 or if I'm starting at like P15, because it's my strategy. I feel it works best for me, and I can get a little superstitious where if I do something slightly wrong, I'm worried that it might go completely sideways. So I try and just stay as consistent as I can with my lap times and my strategy, regardless of where they might start me, because every lobby is going to be different, of course. You may have a great lobby and you're full of, say, B driver rating drivers and S sportsman rating drivers. You have an impressive showing, and through the magic of Polyphony Digital and the matchmaking system, you could wind up with A driver rated and like C rated safety rating drivers for your next lobby. So it's really daily races are, of course, a massive gamble when you think about it. So to me, my best course of action is just stick with what works for me and then carry on and just try and race my race.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think you're going to see a variety of strategies come to play here. And obviously, like we saw in qualifying, there's some folks that have some really interesting things that they're going to try and do through this, like Twitch burning that fuel off in the first couple laps.
Now let's see how these strategies go to benefit or harm our competitors as we're about to get race 2 of round 1 elimination underway.
Oh, how exciting. I can't tell you how excited I've been for this week. And, first race was not a disappointment. Looking forward to seeing how we go.
Oh, I don't think we're going to have any disappointment in any sort when it comes to racing this season. We've got all of our drivers lined up. Going to get ready for the start of race 2 in elimination. Oh, we had someone jump the line. See, you got to be careful with it, folks.
Oh, did they? I didn't catch that. Okay.
Oh, yes. We had one in the middle of the grid have a bit of a itchy gas pedal and jump the line. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite them. I also see that some of our drivers did not use traction control for a grid start. Traditionally, from what I've seen, most people will do traction control 1 for a false start check grid start. That way they can have a strong jump off the line. Now, as we're getting this underway, we see Hako trying to get as much of a gap between him and the rest of his competitors coming up into Dunlop.
There's some fun stuff going on at the back of the pack. Jimmy K9's been sliding around a little bit. I think there was a couple different contact between him, FredBird, maybe even Art Vandalay. Those guys back there are spacing out a little bit more now, though.
All right, as we come into Degna 1, Jimmy's gone off. Tiny bit of bump in between Jimmy and Big Joe, but looks like it didn't inhibit anybody's racing line too severely as we come up into the hairpin. Got a lot of congestion. I hope they're mindful of that.
Yeah, you got to give the other racers space and really give them an opportunity to pick their lane. Looks like almost a little bit of contact between ROCRoomes and Art, but nothing too drastic or dramatic there, so I think everybody's still okay.
All right, as long as everybody keeps a cool head and is mindful of their surroundings, I think we're going to be in for some very clean racing. Did we just see one go wide into Spoon?
Yeah, it looks like Rome's a little bit wide out there and just over the line a little bit.
I think we can attribute that to, of course, cold tires, as it was a grid start, and also being on a harder compound, but smart thinking on Rooms to get the harder compounds out of the way right now while he can.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Corridor, Fernando. You know, there's a few other ones that started on hard. Looks like Jimmy K9's on hard. Big Joe and FredBird started on the mediums, I believe. So.
All right. Oh, we've already got Corridor and Fernando coming into the pits to get off those hards. Great thinking. Sneaky's run really wide into that opening turn. That might come back to bite him in terms of race pace. Here we have Speed Racer and our POV for the S's. Holding a very nice line, just lifting to get around, not worrying about trying to brake or anything like that. I see that in a lot of track guides, honestly. When you go through the S's here on Suzuka, they say just lift, don't worry about trying to brake, just try and coast your car through. It definitely is a valid strategy. Now Speed Racer coming into Degna 1, staying in 4th. Bold choice. Now shifting down into 2nd, into Degna 2, clipping the apex. Now we've got Sneaky, Salamander, and Speed Racer all coming into the hairpin. Hako took it masterfully as always, and we've got... Looks like everybody took the hairpin in beautiful, clean fashion. Now let's see how Art Vandalay does coming into the hairpin. Holding a nice line, getting a good exit. That might work in his favor. I see that Art does have a 10-second deficit behind Speed Racer, but has a almost 6-second lead over Big Joe. Looks like everybody's already started to fan out and kind of get their race pace in already on the 2nd lap. Art coming through Spoon nicely. Big Joe coming in as well. Taking it in 2nd, making sure to get a lot of rotation, but there was a bit of a tail slapper in there. Now let's see how Big Joe does coming into 130R. He's definitely full throttle right now. Doing a lift to ensure getting across. Perfectly fine. It's better to be safe instead of roll the dice as we come into the Casio Triangle. It's the breaking point just slightly and into the tire wall. Oh, that is unfortunate. Now let's take a look at how Big Joe gets back on. Okay,
that's a good rejoin.
Oh, clean rejoin. Making sure to not get in anybody's way and being mindful of the fact that there is no ghosting. Big Joe coming into the pits. Yep. Let's see if he's gonna swap into hards. Good idea to get those out of the way right now, and also kind of just tough a moment to cool off as we've got Jimmy coming into the first turn.
And Jimmy's run on the medium compound, so I wonder how many laps he's going to try and get out of those before he's starting to switch over.
That is a good question. Everybody's been practicing in their free time, so they've all adopted strategies that they feel works best for them. Let's see how it does in comparison to their rivals. Now we've got Jimmy coming around, finishing up the S's. Heading up into Dunlop. That's nice and tidy. That's That's a textbook racing line right there. Ooh, getting a little bit on the grass. That's frisky. Dropping down into fourth for Degna 1. Right in that curb. Missed the apex on Degna 2, but that's perfectly fine. Still got a almost 5.5 second lead over Fernando, so there is a little bit of wiggle room for slight errors. Now we see Jimmy coming through to the hairpin. Let's take a look at AngryFredbird, shall we? All right.
And him and Rooms
Rooms
have been having a pretty good battle going here.
Let's see how plays out in Fred's favor coming into Spoon. Will there be an overtaking opportunity? Yes, there is.
Look at that.
Fred saw a door, walked right through, as did
Corridor. Yep, stuck through as well. I really think the middle of the pack is going to be where a lot of the positions are gained and earned in this race. Like we said, those guys up front can be really, really fast. So you got Hawko, Sneaky, Salamander, Speed Racer, even Art. But boy, these guys here in the middle and the back, they're going to be battling because none of them want to go home today.
Oh, of course not. Nobody wants to go home. Ooh, that looks like a teensy bit of a late break from Corridor. But that just might be his standard braking point. It's definitely hard to tell. As they're coming across into the start-finish straight with a under half-second gap behind Fredbird. Corridor is definitely still able to fight for position. Whoa, what happened here? Fredbird decided to give up the racing line. That's interesting.
He does have the mediums. He is on medium, so maybe he's thinking coming into the S's that was the move. I don't know.
Well, he might be aware of the he might be aware of the tire difference between himself and Corridor. So that was a very gentlemanly move to move out of the way for the racer on the softer compound. Didn't want to become a stubborn back marker or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'll add that, like we talked about earlier, racing together is going to be faster against the person next to you. So, maybe he's just thinking, hey, I'm going to follow this guy. He seems to have a little faster pace and get him by to where it doesn't cost both of them time throughout the overall race. Because ultimately, it's not necessarily where you finish in your heat as far as where you finish compared to everybody else.
Oh, without a doubt. So now we've got Salamander coming up into 130R with a 3-second deficit on Sneaky. Coming in very nicely. That was elegantly done. Now we go into the Casio Triangle, dropping down in first, back up to second. So just trying to maintain some of that rotation, but staying in second till the full exit of the Casio Triangles, as opposed to some of the races we've seen drop from first, or drop to first, short shift to second, get through the second apex, and then immediately up to third for stability. This definitely goes to showcase everybody's unique driving style.
Yeah, and he's certainly not short shifting, is he?
Not that I've seen so far, but only time will tell. Yep, revved it out into fourth, back down into third to get some rotation, and just feathering that throttle through the S's in third gear. Let's see how our race leaders do. Oh, wow. Almost a 5-second lead on Sneaky. Oh, boy. I think Hawko's just treating this as a Sunday drive. Oh, cut a lot of the corner on Degna 1. But had a nice exit on Degna 2. Maybe ran a teensy bit wide, but looks like that's not going to slow him down much. As we come into the hairpin, let's take a look at this racing line. Ooh, early on the throttle. Interesting. That was brave. That was really brave, to be honest.
Boy, he makes that look easy, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks like there's no rain whatsoever for him. Let's see how Hawko manages to get around Spoon. Staying in fourth. Dropping down to third. Hugging that inside curb. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like Hawko's a bit of a gambling man, rolling the dice here. Let's see if Hawko's going to hold it flat out. Yep, Hawko's got it flat out. It's all or nothing for Hawko right now, folks. Maintaining second gear for the Casio Triangle. All right. Let's see what time he sets. He has set a 2:02.695, about a quarter of a second slower than his fastest, but that's okay. Let's take a look at the other competitors, shall we? Moving over to Jimmy, we're going up into Spoon once again. Ooh, side-by-side action with Fred. cleanly across. That's what you like to see, folks. Jimmy is currently on the medium compound, has blown through about a quarter of his tank of gas, so let's see if Jimmy's going to ride out those mediums and get a splash of fuel later, or do a bit of a tire change to splash and dash within the next couple laps to try and capitalize on the softer compounds.
I would imagine that
softer. Or I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would imagine that him and Fred are both on the mediums. You got to expect these guys to come in here any minute, right? I mean, you can't want to run the mediums too much longer without getting some softs on there. Jimmy passes up the pit. So did Fred.
Looks like they're wanting to run these mediums just a teensy bit longer to ensure they get enough fuel and tire out of the softs. Now, have they both already been to the pit once?
No, I believe Fred started on the medium.
Okay.
I guess Jimmy did too.
Do you think they're going to be pulling a stint on the mediums, do one obligatory lap on the hards, and then jump to the softs for the rest of the race?
I bet that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, again, there's a variety of different strategies these drivers can use, and it'd be really interesting to see these two who are running kind of right with each other to take a similar strategy, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I wonder if these drivers are thinking more of a long-term strategy as opposed to just keeping track of their laps and being like, okay, I'm going to go in and pit lap 4, get on the hards, and then run that for a lap and just be very sequential about it, and more going by feel as opposed to having a full systematic approach.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, you could maybe watch for the folks that, you're pacing with. And, in this situation, if I'm FredBird and I see Jimmy go in, I'm probably going to follow him. So, that's definitely a valid strategy as well to say, let's start on the mediums and kind of see where it puts us and play it by ear from there.
Now, this is very interesting. Starting at about the Jimmy FredBird area, there's about a 1-minute deficit between them and first place. It might be in their favor to go and get on those softer tires. Try and close that gap as fast as they can, because we may have plenty of racing left, but I don't know, a 60-second plus deficit is going to be a very steep uphill battle to come back from.
Well, and let's not forget that we're talking about, Hawko up there running 202s, and, that's gonna add time to that total overall deficit really fast on every lap for these four guys. So, man, it's got to be tough to keep up with that. And look at, for example, Sneaky's doing it. He's probably 7 seconds off the lead. Where you're talking some of those guys that are about halfway through the field or almost a minute out.
Yeah, but if you notice a theme in the backer part of the pack where they're all on the harder compounds. So it seems like they might be doing a saving the best for last and just completely sending it once they all get on those softer compounds, because we are almost approaching halfway through this race, and the people up in front will have to be mindful of their 2 mandatory pit stops that they have to take as well. So that gap may get smaller, but they would benefit from considering going in and getting a fresh set of tires and a dash of fuel. Let's take a look at ROCRoomes, shall we?
And he's on the mediums as well.
Yeah. So there definitely is a theme and strategy when it comes to the back of the pack of our competitors. But looks like ROCRoomes is just flying through Dunlop, coming into Degna 1 in 3rd gear, keeping it nice and tidy. Back up to 4th to avoid the rev limiter, and going through Degna 2 in 3rd. That is
wow.
Ooh, look at that. Knocked over almost 3/4 of a second off their fastest lap so far. Running deep into the hairpin, though, that might cost them. Let's see. What's Big Joe looking like? All right, we have Big Joe with about a 2-second deficit. Now, just because you're in last doesn't mean your race is over, of course. So
Fred's going into the pits. Fred and Jimmy have both gone into the pits.
Oh, that's good. That's good. They're probably wanting to close that gap as fast as they can now. Big Joe went through Spoon with a very nice racing line. Let's see if help him catch up to ROCRoomes. Looks like not quite, but still close enough for there to be some action going forward. Ooh, we've got Jimmy and Fred coming out of the pits now on new racing softs. Looks like they're ready to get their race completely underway.
Well, believe it or not, looks like Fred actually took the hards.
Fred took the hards.
He did, yeah. You got Jimmy on soft, Fred's on the hard. So I'm wondering if Jimmy's going to run one lap on hard again. I guess we'll see.
Ooh, do you think Jimmy may have forgotten about the hards?
Oh boy, I certainly hope not, especially after the driver meeting. I mean, that could it made very clear. You know, you just got to make sure you run all 3 compounds. Although, with that being said, I can tell you, I've switched tires before and thought I changed compounds and didn't. And, you know, accidents happen, but you know, when you get into a league at this caliber, you would expect these guys to be able to keep up with that. So let's see how it plays out on Jimmy's behalf.
Yeah, and of course we don't know what the competitors themselves are thinking, so everything is obviously speculation. But I believe that everybody's strategy is indeed a viable one, and we'll be able to see them close the gaps as we approach the close of this race in about, I don't know, 10 laps, as we saw in race 1, where everything was just starting to kind of cool down. Everybody was getting back together as the race was coming to a close.
Yeah, we're just about halfway through, and you know, if you look at, for example, Hawko he's just past a half a tank. You know, some of the folks up at the lead are kind of in that same area with their gas. I think there's still a whole lot of strategy to be played out through these last 10 laps.
Oh, absolutely. We're just now hitting close to the halfway point of the race, and it's still everybody's game. It's not over till everybody gets the checkered flag. So those that are currently trailing behind, just don't give up. You've still got plenty of race ahead of you. Anything can happen. There's still problem areas of the track for the drivers that they need to be aware of, and if somebody just kind of checks out and drives on autopilot, they may run the risk of making a costly mistake, like we saw with the crash into the walls at the Casio Triangle. Now, let's see how Salamander goes into 130R. Still on the racing softs, under half a tank of fuel. Bit of a lift, and then powered right back on the throttle. But hits the brake point for the Casio Triangle perfectly, clipping the apex nicely on turn 1, clipping it generously on the second apex, and just flooring it out. Look at that. Coming in and setting a 2:03.806, not their fastest, but it's still a fast lap, of course, as we're going down into turn 1. Let's see how Salamander tackles this. Ooh, dropping all the way down to second, riding the rev limiter a bit and short shifting back to third. All right. As we come into the S's, drops down to third and is just dancing on that throttle. Look at that.
Yeah, I don't see him hitting the brake either, as we talked about. Some people may, some may not. Salamander is. There's a little touch.
Just a touch. Just err on the side of caution. As we're coming up into Dunlop, holding a very nice line, avoiding those curves as best he can, and yeah, I think this is going to benefit his times. Cutting through Degna 1 in 4th gear, dropping down into 2nd, making sure to clip the apex into Degna 2 while shifting up into 3rd from some added stability as he approaches the hairpin. Ooh, hugging the inside and getting a good wide exit to carry a little extra speed. Very nicely done, Salamander. Let's take a look at our other competitors. Sneaky up here. Yep.
While we're switching, I'll tell you, it looks like FredBird has gotten all of his stops done. He's ran all 3 compounds. He's on the softs.
All right, so FredBird's now just going to be running the rest of this off. Oh, we've got some back markers here, folks. Looks like the back markers are staying off the racing line and letting Sneaky pass. That's good to see. Oh, Sneaky jumping right. Oh. Was Joe holding them up, or was Sneaky trying to get a little bit of slipstream behind Joe? That was interesting. As we see Yep. Ooh, Big Joe went off. That is unfortunate. Hopefully he'll be able to bounce back, though. There's still plenty of racing left. Let's take a look at our front runner right now. Holding a... Wow, that's 8.5 seconds ahead of second place Sneaky. Okay, yeah, Hako's just having a Sunday drive right now, ladies and gents. And non-binary individuals, of course.
Having a good old time out there, isn't he? Getting, getting just a couple laps in, and just, boy, is he nailing these apexes. Look at this guy.
Hako's just dancing at this moment, like just making everything look easy, pretending there's not a drop of rain in sight. Coming into Degna 1, and oh, there we go, lifted into 4. I was concerned for a sec he was going through that in 5th, but he maintained Degna 2 in 3rd. Yeah, Hako's just having a grand old time as he approaches some back markers out on the other side of the hairpin.
And maybe this is a good time to mention that Hako also does a racing, I believe, so you can get in touch with him through some of his platforms. And, I've heard that he also does coaching, trying to get faster and get your game up.
Noble. Now let's take a look at Speed Racer, shall we? In 4th place, breathing right down Salamander's neck with under a half-second gap as they approach the hairpin. Looks like they also approached the back marker in Big Joe, but Big Joe was courteous enough to stay out of their way as to not impede on the race. Good sportsmanship from you. Let's see how Speed Racer handles going into Spoon inside of Salamander's slipstream, shall we? Ooh, ran a teensy bit wide due to that dirty air, but was able to save it nonetheless. Ooh, that was a very good run by Speed Racer out of the Spoon. And
yeah, I think he did a good job keeping up with Salamander through that for sure. You don't want to give him any space. You don't want him to get away too far, because you definitely want his split for this next straight.
Oh, without a doubt. And looks like the exit from Spoon also helped kind of close the gap up to Salamander, up to the point where they hit 130R. Yeah, Speed Racer definitely has Salamander in his sights and is not going to relent whatsoever. Now, I've also noticed that our front runners are still running on sauce. I guess they're thinking of running the outer compounds closer to race end. Let's just hope that works out in their favor. It looks like the gap between Salamander and Speed Racer is getting ever slightly bigger. And the gap between Salamander and Sneaky is moving. Also moving up. Wow, Sneaky's definitely trying to keep Salamander away as best he can, trying to earn himself essentially a free pit stop.
Yeah, pushing him and keeping that distance at bay as much as he can. They're both on the same tire compound, and if you look at the fuel gauge, they're not far away from each other. But Salamander looks to have much more soft, so he's just got more tire left than Sneaky does at this point.
Yeah, it definitely shows that Sneaky's racing all out at this moment, and I don't blame him, because that's a 10-second deficit between himself and Hako, and if I were Sneaky, I'd be wanting to get that as small as possible as well, because that pit stop is going to take at a minimum of what, 20 to 25 seconds?
Oh, minimum. Yeah, absolutely. I've always kind of been shocked at how long some of these pit stops take, because it's like you feel like you drive through there and you're like, hey, where's my car? Can I get to the station and get changed up on? But I think with 25 to 30 seconds is about right for most of these.
Yeah. Now let's see what time Sneaky's going to be setting as he approaches the line on lap 13. All right, 2:04.511, about a second and a half off his best time, but there's still plenty of racing left. And with the gap between himself and Salamander, there is room to make some errors and have a little more relaxed of a race time. As we go into Jimmy, who is currently sitting 30 seconds behind Corridor and 26 seconds ahead of Fernando Button, with a almost 2-minute deficit from first place. But looks like with Jimmy being on the softer compounds and shedding a little bit of that fuel weight, these gaps are going to be getting a lot smaller. as Jimmy is flying up in towards Spoon. Let's see how he does as he gets more accustomed to the racing softs. Holds it. Lifts a little bit, make sure he gets some rotation. Do a quick downshift into third to ensure a tight line. And right back on the throttle. It doesn't get better than that. That was textbook Spoon right there, ladies and gents, and non-binary individuals.
Yeah, and he's in a good spot. He's got a little bit of space, so you think he's going to take advantage of that as much as he possibly can. 30 seconds in front, 30 seconds behind.
Oh, yeah, and Jimmy just lifted ever so slightly. Went from about 100% throttle to, what was that, about 80%? Just the slightest of lifts to try and maintain as much as possible and get some rotation without running the risk of understeering off into the realms where that could be absolutely disastrous for your lap time. Now let's see what's going on with AngryFredbird, who is 15 seconds ahead of Big Joe, 16 seconds behind Fernando, and about 2.5 minutes off first place. Looks like Fred is just having a relaxing drive by himself and enjoying the clean air if he can. But with the leaders still not, of course, pitting, the gap will inevitably get smaller, so Fred does have plenty of time to try and catch up over the next 8 laps. As he comes into the Casio Triangle in second, and there's a blue flag warning for him as he exits. Let's see how Fred manages this.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to mention, like somebody like Sneaky is on a controller. He's driving a motion controller, for those of you guys who know what that is. We saw Sophie do the same thing in the first race. And then Fredbird is another one that drives on a controller. He's on a pad. Smooth, so smooth for all these guys on their inputs. I mean, if you ever watch somebody and they're jerking around on their pads, the folks that you're watching in these leagues, these guys are really, really good. You just don't see that from them. Even though they're on a pad, you might not be able to tell the difference between that and a wheel for some of these.
Oh yeah, if you're a master in your input method, nobody's really going to be able to tell the difference unless they're extremely critical. And at that point, what's the point? As we've got Fred coming up through Dunlop, still has the blue flag warning. Wonder where the car that's allegedly faster is. Oh, and the blue flag's gone as we go into Degna 1, and the blue flag's back. Into Degna 2, missing the apex. But still held it beautifully, and looks like Fred's giving it up for
a speed racer.
Or a speed racer, yes.
Yeah.
Holding a tight line into the hairpin and getting on the throttle at his earliest convenience. Very nicely done. Very nicely held. Let's check on ROCRoomes, who is currently in P last, 13 seconds behind Big Joe with a 3-minute deficit behind Hako. Now, since it is Hako at first, I wouldn't be beating myself up too much about that space between him and first. Definitely not having the greatest of runs, but as long as ROCRoomes is just having a good time, that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, we want to...
Yeah, and Toon, one thing that's important with that is while Hako is on the track, with it being cumulative points, maybe this isn't his best track, and he's just got to get out of this week and get into the next week to try not to get eliminated again. So, if you look at some of these guys on the bubble, I think, we're really looking at, Fernando, Fredbird, Big Joe, and ROCRoomes that anything could happen, right? They're worried about their total lap time and how that's going to compare against some of the folks that finished in the first split. So anything could still happen. And you've got ROCRoomes going into the pit, so he is going to get a tire compound change coming off the mediums, if I'm not mistaken there.
Oh, absolutely. I'm surprised ROCRoomes held on to the mediums as long as he did. Now let's check on Art Vandalay, who is coming through the S's right now. Oops, staying in fourth, dropping down in third to make sure it doesn't go wide, feathering the throttle a little bit, but still, that is an exuberant run through the S's, to be certain, as we come up through Dunlop. Coming up into fifth, and let's see how he does going into Degna 1. In the fourth, that was aggressive into Degna 1, but taking it easy into Degna 2, short shifting up into third, riding that curb just. And if we take a look, Art's actually Art's going to be running on fumes soon. Hopefully he has a stop in the pits in his near future. Otherwise, we may have some problems.
I was just going to mention that you're right on point. And it looks like his soft compound is been going pretty well. So he might still have another lap or two on those tires, but he does not have it in the gas tank.
Oh no, absolutely not. Even with the most conservative fuel saving, I don't think that trying to push your luck would be wise. Oh, Hako has gone into the pits, as have Sneaky. Oh wow, right. They were running dangerously low on gas. Looks like Speed Racer is not too far behind them, of course. Unfortunately, I think Sneaky and Hako have earned themselves a bit of a free pit stop, though, with that gap they gave themselves in front of Speed Racer.
And Hako only took about a half a tank of fuel. So it looks like he went onto the medium compounds and about a half a tank.
Okay, so Hako's done a bit of a splash and dash, went good enough, and let's get going. I don't blame him for that. So we've got Speed Racer and Art Vandalay in the pits right now, which means that should give Salamander... Oh, Salamander's gone into the pits as well to get off those hards. Great thinking. Speed Racer's jumped onto the hards, and Hako is currently cruising around on the mediums. Saving the hardest compound for last. That's brave. That is brave, but if I were a gambler man, I'd say Hako's going to run hards on the final lap and run these mediums for the next 3.
I would bet you're right, and I noticed that Speed Racer didn't take any fuel on that stop, so I guess he's probably going to go from the hards. He's on the hards right now to the mediums and finish out mediums. So that I find really interesting that he wouldn't at least taken a little fuel on that stop.
Nobody can know what Speed Racer's thinking except Speed Racer himself, but if he's confident in it, then who are we to judge? I believe Speed Racer was mindful of his gas tank and decided that, all right, I've got enough for one more lap. Let's see what we can do. As we come into the hairpin, following through nicely, not letting the hard slow him up too much. Definitely doing what he can to get through this lap as safely but as fast as possible, as he does have a 12-second lead over Art Vandalay, but is behind Sneaky by almost 20 seconds. You hear those tires begging for mercy on understeer.
What do you think, Toon? Does he have enough gas to get?
I think he does. It's just going to be very close. Like, very close. Let's see how he does going into 130R, shall we? Lifts, good thinking on those harder tires. Yep. Traction control kicking in as he entered 130R, of course. Coming into the Casio triangle, adjusted his brake point accordingly. Shifted up into third through the first apex. That's fascinating. And
he's going to take a penalty.
I think that's going to be a 3-second penalty. That is unfortunate. But Speed Racer needs to get in there no matter what. Now let's see how Hako's doing. Driving on the medium tires. Just coming into Degna 1, staying 4th. Dropping down into 3rd as it approaches Degna 2. Yeah, looks like Hako's just treating this as a leisurely cruise through Suzuka. Now let's see how Salamander's doing. Yep, there's a... Oh, no, there's a 3-second penalty for Speed Racer.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
That is a huge bummer, especially because he was doing so good. I hope that, well, let's take a look here real quick, actually. So, 3-second penalty is about 6.5 seconds of corridor. Depending on the gap between himself and corridor by the time the penalty line comes up, he may either be still able to breathe fresh air and not have corridor down his throat, or he may be fighting to claim P5 for at least a lap or 2. That's something you really don't want to see. See how corridor does coming up into Dunlop, who's he is running on fumes right now.
He is.
Yeah, that's concerning. That is honestly very concerning. But he is on the soft, so if he does have to run to the pits, well, not if, when he does run for the pits, he will be able to just get a splash of fuel and go if he has gone through the other tire compounds thus far. Now, as he's flying out of the hairpin, trying to catch up to Speed Racer, it seems. What is that? Slowly closing that 6.5 second gap, still maintaining a 22.5 second lap, or 22.5 second gap to Jimmy. Yeah, I think Corridor's gonna be able to go into the pits, grab some fuel, and run back out without any real issues from Jimmy.
All right, and Speed's taking his penalty now, so let's see how this plays out with Corridor coming right up on him. We know he's going to catch him. He's likely going to pass him, but where, right?
Yeah, looks like, oh yeah, Corridor's flying, but going into the Casio Triangle, there's really no room for you to try. Oh, ooh, dive bomb dive bomb the first part of the Casio Triangle. Corridor, you got to go get some gas, man. There you go.
Awesome.
So that's going to buy Speed Racer enough time to put a gap between himself and, of course, Corridor. Let's check in on Art Vandalay, who is 35 seconds behind Sneaky, and what is that, 5.5 in front of Salamander?
Yeah, almost a minute off the lead there. Boy, that just gives you an example of how clean and fast Hako is running today.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think Hako hasn't dropped below first once outside of maybe a brief moment in the pits, has he?
Oh, no, not at all. I don't think so. You know, he he established his lead right off the bat and just has refused to let it go.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. Oh, we've got Art Vandalay coming up into the hairpin. Let's see how he does on the mediums. A little bit of tire squeal, but all in all, clean line through. Did you see some marbling on the track? Looks like some tire marbles from tire wearers coming up. Do you think that might play an effect at all?
Oh, I think it will 100% play an effect. You know, we've got, what, 2.5, maybe 3 laps to go here, and boy, as we saw in the last race, you know, in it's racing, so we know that anything can happen. These guys are really going to be pushing here in the last couple laps, so I'll be curious to see if we get anybody that hits that that spot that you pointed out there.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Let's take a look. Let's take a look how Art's going to manage 130R. Holding it flat, yeah. Art's trying to put some distance between himself and Salamander while also trying to catch up to Sneaky. Coming through the Casio Triangle, cutting a lot of that second apex. And Art is going into the pits to, I assume, get on to the last required compound and maybe a splash of fuel, boy?
Yeah, you'd think he might get a little bit.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't think, well, they're the ones racing, not us, so they're fully aware of what their cars can and can't handle, like fuel-wise, and in terms of final laps. Looks like Art felt confident in the amount of fuel left in his car and is ready to finish off the race on the softs. Or on the hards, my apologies, on the hards. Let's go take a look at Fernando, shall we? Who is about 40 seconds behind Jimmy and about 35 seconds ahead of Fred. So it looks like Fernando's just going to be having a relaxing drive around Spoon. Oh, we're going a teensy bit wide. Got to be careful. You may have a lot of clean air, but that can change in an instant. As we see Fernando coming into 130R, shifting up to 6. And about 5 seconds slower than his fastest lap. Wonder what happened there. May have gone off. Speaking of people going, looks like Hako has gone into the pits. Fernando
making his last tire change, right?
Yeah. Fernando beautifully through the Casio Triangle. That was as smooth as I've seen. Let's hope Fernando doesn't have to run into any traffic on the straight to the first turn as we go and take a look at Salamander, who just came through Spoon very nicely and is approaching 130R. Let's see how he does this. And lifting down 25% throttle and then back right on once rotation was satisfactory. Good call. Coming down into the Casio Triangle himself. Cutting that second apex nicely and getting on the throttle. Did you see a little bit of a wiggle there?
A little wiggle. I did. I saw that, on the mediums. I guess, he's pushing it pretty hard there. So you can expect that here coming in with one lap go. They're pushing, and none of these guys want to give up any second.
Oh, no, of course not. I think coming into this final lap, everybody's going to be, well, everybody not named Hako is going to be driving their hearts out trying to close these gaps.
Yeah, and a good battle that's going on right now is P7 and P8, Corridor and Fernando Button, within about a second of each other. And boy, when you're talking about the bubble, man, that could be where it's at here. It's really hard to say where that line's going to be drawn after this race ends.
Oh, absolutely. Those that started the elimination this week in the bubble definitely have a lot to lose and a lot to prove. So at the end of the day, only time will tell as they go through the final lap of elimination, round 1, race 2. We hope that you've all enjoyed the broadcast so far and, of course, the racing action. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to show your support in any way you deem fit by sharing, subscribing, liking, with notifications turned on for subscription, of course, and also spreading the word to your friends, family, loved ones, pets, exes, anybody in between, as Hako does a Tokyo drift finish across the line.
How about that?
Well, you know what?
He's a showman, make no mistake.
Oh, of course, showmanship and sportsmanship is what we've seen from Hako this race. As Sneaky comes in taking P2 on the podium with 20 seconds behind him being Salamander coming into the Casio Triangle for the final time this race. Ooh. Are you seeing the fuel gauge for some of these drivers coming into the final lap?
I'm seeing a lot of them have cut it really close. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Jimmy, for example, it's about halfway through the lap, Yeah.
All these drivers running on fumes. Thank goodness they were all mindful of what lap they were on and didn't have a huge mistake by forgetting what lap they were on and thinking that it was the end. As we got Art coming across, rounding out our top 5, and following relatively close behind him is Jimmy K9. Cutting a lot of that first apex in the chicane. So
yeah, for a second I thought Corridor might be able to close that gap on Jimmy, but Jimmy just kind of increased it a little bit, really every turn. So he made that 2.8 second gap out of about 3 laps.
Oh yeah, and looks like we're just waiting on Fernando to come across the line for the final time as he comes into 130R. So, do you have anything that you'd like to say to those that maybe didn't have the best showing of this elimination round?
No, honestly, I think this was just an incredible two races that we got to watch here. Even the drivers that might not have had their best runs have ran amazing races. So, I commend all these guys running in the rain, the car, the 3-tire combination. This was not an easy race for these guys to work through. So, my goodness, just so impressive.
Oh yeah, not by any means. And Hako, of course, taking the victory and starting on pole position. It looks like between Hako and Sophia, we've got a bit of a theme going on here. They're definitely wanting to start first and finish first. Now let's take a look at the final results. So Hako ran a 41.47. That was faster than the mind-boggling time Sophia set in race 1. And then following 17 seconds behind Hako, of course, is GLK Sneaky. And about math. About 25 seconds behind Sneaky is Salamander. And then about 12 seconds behind Salamander, give or take, is Speed Racer. And then coming in, rounding out our top 5 is Art Vandalay with about a little over a minute behind Hako, of course. Coming in at P6, we have Jimmy K9, then followed by Corridor and Fernando Button. Now let's take a look at the rest of the results here, shall we? We have AngryFredbird down by 1 lap, Big Joe down by 1 lap, and ROCRoomes all down by 1 lap. Definitely not the best, but as always, it could always be worse. So, to those of you that did not finish in an ideal position for yourself, just know you all did a fantastic job. And I think the biggest accomplishment here is none of you gave up, no matter what, during this race. You stuck it out. And for that, I am very proud to have commentated on your races, and it has been an absolute honor for all of you. Now let's tabulate the results, and in the meantime, we will be taking another intermission where when we come back, we will come back with the results, the reveal for next week's races, and who is unfortunately going to be leaving us this elimination round. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you when we get back. Welcome back, everybody. We have finally got all of the results tabulated and ready to go for you. We hope you've enjoyed watching the first round of our elimination races. And we personally, on behalf of the entire McNaughty Racing League, would like to thank you for spending your time with us this Friday evening. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty and see that point spread. Alrighty, SlowMoe, take it away.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention that, we're seeing this for the first time along with you guys. So as you look at the top, you've got Twitch, Sophia, and Sneaky. Let me quickly remind you where points have come from and how they got populated. Those that finished within their splits were given 5 points for winning your split, 3 points for second in your split, and 1 point for third in your split. Then beyond that, all of the total times for the race were put together for the shortest to the longest, and the one who was the fastest driver got 23 points, and then so on all the way down the line to 1 point. So this tells us we have 4 drivers that are not making it to the next week, and unfortunately those are going to be ROCRoomes, Root, Jay Smith, and Big Joe. Really great showing from those 4. Unfortunately 2 of those were not able to join us today, and it turned out to be a pretty big difference there. So, Toon, talk to me. What are your thoughts? Any big surprises here? Anybody going home that you didn't expect to yet?
Personally, I am quite sad to see Jay Smith and Root leaving, especially because they couldn't be here through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
But even though you guys are going home, wish you all the very best in terms of everything going on in your personal lives. And we really hope this doesn't deter you from coming back and giving Season 2 a shot. And that applies to not only Jay Smith and Root, but also to ROCRoomes and Big Joe. You guys might be going home, but we really, really hope to see you back next season and bounce back from this.
Yeah, and anything can happen. Obviously, I think we saw that ROCRoomes had a pretty rough a couple incidences and some challenges, and he was off track a couple times. So, not every race is going to work out the way you want it to. But what an awesome league. Twitch and Sophia 1-2 there with Sneaky and Shaggy right behind them. If you look at, just look at some of the total times up there. My goodness, 42 minutes for the top 10. That's really fast. Oh,
absolutely. And we should also make note that for our keen-eyed viewers, Sneaky's time is lower than Sophia's, but Sophia did get the point advantage for winning her race. So please bear that in mind as well.
Yeah, very valid point. That's why when you're in a league setting like this, the points are so important. Not to mention your time, but the points can really add up. So that qualifying time gave her a good opportunity to take that second spot.
And just because Sophia was able to win her race and Sneaky did come in second, she was able to just barely inch out that second place from Sneaky. But P3 is still nothing to scoff at.
No, not at all. And getting into next week and then the final week is really what this league is all about. So even some of those people that are going to be down in the bubble, their season's not necessarily over. They've got a lot of ground to catch up to Twitch and Sophia. If, for example, Jimmy being 20 points behind the top 2, but it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Oh, absolutely. This is still anybody's game, and it will be anybody's game, including into the finals. Now, let's also throw out the fact that the bottom 5 next week will be going home, but that could be anybody, really, depending on how the racing goes between then and the finals. So let's just do a quick run through of the standings real quick. So up at the top, we have Twitch Hako, who absolutely obliterated the racing today. Sophia in second, who also obliterated her racing, followed by GLK Sneaky rounding off our podium. And in fourth and fifth, we have GSR Shaggy Doo and Lakoboro, respectively. And then followed by Salamander MN, Chief Apollo 11, Speed Racer, Stubbs McStubbin tied for 8th, and then MK rounding out our top 10. Following MK is PHG Papa's House of Games, followed by Art Vandalay, and then Corridor 71. And then tied for 14th, we have CBD Driver and Arrow. Coming in at P16 is Jimmy K9. Taking P17 is Fernando Button. P18, Nikki Hunt. And then coming out in P19 is AngryFredbird. I think it's not lost on some of those down in the lower standings that they're hanging on by a thread. And I hope that they'll be able to use this information and the weeks in the time in between the racing next week to really fine-tune those areas of improvement that they feel they need and come back even stronger. So now that this is all taken care of, let's go take a look at what they'll be doing next week, huh? So next week, we have Elimination Round 2 on the 18th, and it is Grand Valley South Reverse, 30 laps in the Honda Civic Type R. That is a front vehicle, folks. And the required tires are going to be the Sports Softs and the Sports Mediums. And it has been brought to my attention as well that it is a night race. So this is gonna be really tricky for all of our competitors. What do you think about it, SlowMoe?
You know, honestly, I think it's an awesome race. It's the California dream, right? You got your tuner car. You're going to run the Grand Valley Highway at night. You're going to do South Reverse, which, to be honest, that's not one that we see a lot. I don't think we've done that in the daily or even a Nations or a Menu. So, what a really cool track car combination for these guys to come out and to show us what they can do to get into that final round.
Oh, absolutely. And that, since you mentioned a tuner car, I should throw out, this car has to be stock. There can be no edits done to it, be it wide body, any customization options such as the side skirts or the front diffusers, any custom wings, anything that might affect the performance or the handling of the car. So no performance changes or anything that could alter the drive dynamics of the car are allowed. Otherwise, you will risk disqualification. So this is not a time to get cute, folks. But with that reveal, it is time for us to, unfortunately, round out this week of racing and this broadcast. We hope that you've all had a wonderful time both watching, and to our competitors, I hope you all had a great time racing, regardless of your results. On screen, you will see our YouTube handles, mine at Toon Kitsune and SlowMoe at GT SlowMoe. If you like what you hear, feel free to drop us a subscribe or anything like that. And if anybody would like to show their support one last time via super chats, super stickers, donations, anything like that, please do. And it is, again, all going to be thrown into the driver's prize pool at the end of the season. So the drivers will walk away with a little bit more pocket cash thanks to your support. We hope you've all had a great time. I hope you all have a pleasant remainder of your night. And we hope to see you again next week, where we will be at Grand Valley. Same time, same channel. Have a great night.